Section 1 of The Diamond Necklace. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. Chapter 1. Age of Romance. The age of romance has not ceased. It never ceases. It does not, if we will think of it, so much as very sensibly decline. The passions are repressed by social forms? Great passions no longer show themselves? Why, there are passions still great enough to replenish Bedlam, for it never wants tenants, to suspend men from bedposts, from improved drops at the west end of Newgate. A passion that explosively shivers asunder the life it took rise in ought to be regarded as considerable. More no passion in the highest heyday of romance yet did. The passions, by grace of the supernal and also of the infernal powers, for both have a hand in it, can never fail us. And then, as to social forms, be it granted that they are of the most buckram quality, and bind men up into the pitifullest, straight-laced, commonplace existence. You ask, where is the romance? In the Scotch way, one answers, where is it not? That very spectacle of an immortal nature, with faculties and destiny extending through eternity, hampered and bandaged up by nurses, pedagogues, posture-masters, and the tongues of innumerable old women, named force of public opinion. By prejudice, custom, want of knowledge, want of money, want of strength into, say, the meager pattern figure that, in these days, meets you in all thoroughfares. A God-created man, all but abnegating the character of man. Forced to exist, automatized, mummy-wise, scarcely in rare moments audible or visible from amid his rapages and cerements, as gentleman or gigman, and so selling his birthright of eternity for the 3 daily meals, poor at best, which time yields. Is not this spectacle itself highly romantic, tragical, if we had eyes to look at it? The high-born, highest-born, for he came out of heaven, lies drowning in the despicablest puddles. The priceless gift of life, which he can have but once, for he waited a whole eternity to be born, and now has a whole eternity waiting to see what he will do when born. This priceless gift we see strangled slowly out of him by innumerable pack-threads, and there remains of the glorious possibility, which we fondly named man, nothing but an inanimate mass of foul loss and disappointment, which we wrap in shrouds and bury underground, surely with well-merited tears. To the thinker here lies tragedy enough, the epitome and marrow of all tragedy whatsoever. But so few are thinkers. Aye, reader, so few think. There is the rub. Not one in the 1,000 has the smallest turn for thinking, only for passive dreaming and hearsaying, with active babbling by rote. Of the eyes that men do glare withal, so few can see. Thus is the world become such a fearful, confused treadmill, and each man's task has got entangled in his neighbor's, and pulls it awry. And the spirit of blindness, falsehood, and distraction, justly named the devil, continually maintains himself among us, and even hopes, were it not for the opposition, which by God's grace will also maintain itself, to become supreme. Thus, too, among other things, has the romance of life gone wholly out of sight, and all history, degenerating into empty invoice lists of pitched battles and changes of ministry, or still worse, into constitutional history, or philosophy of history, or philosophy teaching by experience, is become dead, as the almanacs of other years. To which species of composition, indeed, it bears in several points of view no inconsiderable affinity. Of all that blinds and shut up men's vision, says one. The worst is self. How true. How doubly true, if self, assuming her cunningest yet miserablest disguise, come on us in never-ceasing, all-obscuring reflexes from the innumerable selves of others. Not as pride, not even as real hunger, but only as vanity and the shadow of an imaginary hunger for applause, under the name of what we call respectability. Alas now for our historian, to his other spiritual deadness, which, however, so long as he physically breathes, cannot be considered complete. This sad new magic influence is added. Henceforth his histories must be all screwed up into the dignity of history. Instead of looking fixedly at the thing, and first of all, and beyond all, endeavoring to see it, and fashion a living picture of it, not a wretched politico-metaphysical abstraction of it, he has now quite other matters to look to. The thing lies shrouded, invisible, in thousand-fold hallucinations and foreign air images. What did the Whigs say of it? What did the Tories, the priests, the freethinkers? Above all, what will my own listening circle say of me for what I say of it? And then his respectability in general as a literary gentleman, his not despicable talent for philosophy. Thus is our poor historian's faculty directed mainly on two objects, the writing and the writer, both of which are quite extraneous, and the thing written of fares as we can see. Can it be wonderful that histories wherein open lying is not permitted are unromantic? Nay, our very biographies, how stiff-starched, visionless, hollow! They stand there respectable, and what more? Dumb idols, with a skin of delusively painted waxwork, inwardly empty or full of rags and bran. In our England especially, which in these days is become the chosen land of respectability, life-writing has dwindled to the sorrowfulest condition. It requires a man to be some disrespectable, ridiculous Boswell before he can write a tolerable life. Thus, too, strangely enough, the only lives worth reading are those of players, emptiest and poorest of the sons of Adam, who nevertheless were sons of his and brothers of ours, and by the nature of the case had already bidden respectability good day. Such bounties, in this as in infinitely deeper matters, does respectability shower down on us. Sad are thy doings, O gig, sadder than those of Juggernaut's car, that, with huge wheel, suddenly crushes asunder the bodies of men. Thou in thy light bobbing Long Acre springs gradually winnowest away their souls. Depend upon it, for one thing, good reader, no age ever seemed the age of romance to itself. Charlemagne, let the poets talk as they will, had his own provocations in the world, what with selling of his poultry and pot-herbs, what with wanton daughters carrying secretaries through the snow, and, for instance, that hanging of the Saxons over the Weser Bridge, 4,000 of them, they say, at one bout. It seems to me that the great Charles had his temper ruffled at times. Roland of Roncesvalles, too, we see well in thinking of it, found rainy weather as well as sunny, knew what it was to have hose need darning, got tough beef to chew, or even went dinnerless, was saddle-sick, calumniated, constipated, as his madness too clearly indicates, and oftenest felt, I doubt not, that this was a very devil's world, and he, Roland himself, one of the sorriest caitiffs there. Only in long subsequent days, when the tough beef, the constipation, and the calumny had vanished, did it all begin to seem romantic, and Euterpens and Arioastus found music in it. So, I say, it is ever, and the more as your true hero, your true Roland, is ever unconscious that he is a hero. This is a condition of all greatness. In our own poor 19th century, The writer of these lines has been fortunate enough to see not a few glimpses of romance. He imagines his 19th is hardly a whit less romantic than that 9th, or any other, since centuries began. Apart from Napoleon and the Dantons and Mirabeaus, whose fire words of public speaking and fire whirlwinds of cannon and musketry, which for a season darkened the air, are perhaps at bottom but superficial phenomena, he has witnessed, in remotest places, much that could be called romantic, even miraculous. He has witnessed overhead the infinite deep, with greater and lesser lights, bright rolling, silent beaming, hurled forth by the hand of God. Around him and under his feet, the wonderfulest earth, with her winter snowstorms and her summer spice airs, and, unaccountablest of all, himself standing there. He stood in the lapse of time. He saw eternity behind him and before him, the all-encircling mysterious tide of force, thousandfold, for from force of thought to force of gravitation, what an interval! Billowed shoreless on, bore him too along with it. He too was part of it. From its bosom rose and vanished in perpetual change the lordliest real phantasmagory which men name being, and ever anew rose and vanished, and ever that lordliest many-colored scene was full, another yet the same. Oak trees fell, young acorns sprang. Men, too, new sent from the unknown, he met, of tiniest size, who waxed into stature, into strength of sinew, passionate fire and light. In other men the light was growing dim, the sinews all feeble, then sank, motionless, into ashes, into invisibility, returned back to the unknown, beckoning him their mute farewell. He wanders still by the parting spot, cannot hear them. They are far, how far! It was a sight for angels and archangels, for indeed God himself had made it holy. One many-glancing asbestos thread in the web of universal history, spirit-woven, it rustled there, as with the howl of mighty winds, through that wild roaring loom of time. Generation after generation, hundreds of them or thousands of them from the unknown beginning, so loud, so stormful, busy, rushed torrent-wise, thundering down, down, and fell all silent. Nothing but some feeble re-echo, which grew ever feebler, struggling up, and oblivion swallowed them all. Thousands more to the unknown ending will follow, and thou here, of this present one, hangest as a drop, still sun-gilt, on the giddy edge, one moment while the darkness has not yet engulfed thee. O brother, is that what thou callest prosaic, of small interest? Of small interest, and for thee? Awake, poor troubled sleeper, shake off thy torpid nightmare dream. Look, see, behold it, the flame image, splendors high as heaven, terrors deep as hell. This is God's creation. This is man's life. Such things has the writer of these lines witnessed in this poor 19th century of ours. And what are all such to the things he yet hopes to witness? Hopes with truest assurance. I have painted so much, said the good Jean Paul in his old days, and I have never seen the ocean. The ocean of eternity I shall not fail to see. Such being the intrinsic quality of this time, and of all time whatsoever, might not the poet who chanced to walk through it find objects enough to paint? What object soever he fixed on, were it the meanest of the mean, let him but paint it in its actual truth, as it swims there in such environment, world old, yet new and never ending, an indestructible portion of the miraculous all. His picture of it were a poem. How much more if the object fixed on were not mean, but one already wonderful, the mystic actual truth of which, if it lay not on the surface, yet shone through the surface, and invited even prosaists to search for it. The present writer, who unhappily belongs to that class, has nevertheless a firmer and firmer persuasion of two things. First, as was seen, that romance exists. Secondly, that now and formerly and evermore it exists, strictly speaking, in reality alone. The thing that is. What can be so wonderful? What, especially to us that are, can have such significance? Study reality, he is ever and anon saying to himself. Search out deeper and deeper its quiet, endless mystery. See it, know it. Then, whether thou wouldst learn from it, and again teach, or weep over it, or laugh over it, or love it, or despise it, or in any way relate thyself to it, thou hast the firmest enduring basis. That hieroglyphic page is one thou canst read on forever, find new meaning in forever. Finally, and in a word, do not the critics teach us, in whatsoever thing thou hast thyself felt interest, in that or in nothing hope to inspire others with interest? In partial obedience to all which, and to many other principles, shall the following small romance of the diamond necklace begin to come together. A small romance, let the reader again and again assure himself, which is no brain-web of mine, or of any other foolish man's, but a fraction of that mystic, spirit-woven web from the loom of time spoken of above. It is an actual transaction that happened in this earth of ours, wherewith our whole business, as already urged, is to paint it truly. For the rest, an earnest inspection, faithful endeavor has not been wanting on our part, nor, singular as it may seem, the strictest regard to chronology, geography, or rather in this case, topography, documentary evidence, and what else true historical research would yield. Were there but on the reader's part a kindred openness, a kindred spirit of endeavor, beshown strongly on both sides by such united twofold philosophy, this poor opaque intrigue of the diamond necklace might become quite translucent between us, transfigured, lifted up into the serene of universal history, and might hang there like the smallest diamond constellation, visible without telescope, so long as it could. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2. The Necklace is Made. Herr, or as he is now called, Monsieur Böhmer, to all appearance wanted not that last infirmity of noble and ignoble minds, a love of fame. He was destined also to be famous more than enough. His outlooks into the world were rather of a smiling character. He has long since exchanged his guttural speech, as far as possible, for a nasal one, his rustic Saxon fatherland for a polished city of Paris, and thriven there. United in partnership with worthy Monsieur Bassange, a sound practical man skilled in the valuation of all precious stones, in the management of workmen, in the judgment of their work, he already sees himself among the highest of his guild, nay, rather the very highest, for he has secured, by purchase and hard money paid, the title of King's Jeweler, and can enter the court itself, leaving all other jewelers, and even innumerable gentlemen, gigmen, and small nobility, to languish in the vestibule. With the costliest ornaments in his pocket, or borne after him by assiduous shop-boys, the happy Böhmer sees high drawing-rooms and sacred ruelles fly open as with talismanic sesame, and the brightest eyes of the whole world grow brighter. To him alone of men the unapproachable reveals herself in mysterious negligee, taking and giving counsel. Do not on all gala days and gala nights his works praise him? On the gorgeous robes of state, on court dresses and lords' stars, on the diadem of royalty. Better still, on the swan neck of beauty and her queenly garniture, from plume-bearing aigrette to shoe-buckle on fairy slipper. That binding play of colors is Baumer's doing. He is joaillier bijoutier de la reine. Could the man but have been content with it? He could not. Icarus-like he must mount too high, have his wax wings melted, and descend prostrate amid a cloud of vain goose-quills. One day, a fatal day, of some year probably among the 70s of last century, it struck Baumer, why should not I, who, as most Christian kings' jeweler, am properly first jeweler of the universe, make a jewel which the universe has not matched? Nothing can prevent thee, Baumer, if thou have the skill to do it. Skill or no skill, answers he, I have the ambition. My jewel, if not the beautifulest, shall be the dearest. Thus was the diamond necklace determined on. Did worthy Bassange give a willing or a reluctant consent? In any case, he consents and cooperates. Plans are sketched, consultations held, stucco models made. By money or credit, the costliest diamonds come in. Cunning craftsmen cut them, set them. Proud Baumer sees the work go prosperously on. Proud man! Behold him on a morning after breakfast. He has stepped down to the innermost workshop before sallying out, stands there with his laced three-cornered hat, cane under arm, drawing on his gloves. With nod, with nasal guttural word, he gives judicious confirmation, judicious abnegation, censure, and approval. A still joy is dawning over that bland, blonde face of his. He can think, while in many a sacred boudoir he visits the unapproachable, that an opus magnum, of which the world wotteth not, is progressing. At length comes a morning when care has terminated, and joy can not only dawn, but shine. The necklace, which shall be famous and world-famous, is made. Made, we call it, in conformity with common speech, but properly it was not made, only with more or less spirit of method, arranged and agglomerated. What spirit of method lay in it might be made, nothing more. But to tell the various histories of those various diamonds, from the first making of them, or even omitting all the rest, from the first digging of them in the far Indian mines, how they lay for uncounted ages and aeons under the uproar and splashing of such Deucalion deluges and Hutton explosions with steam enough and Werner submersions, silently embedded in the rock, did, nevertheless, when their hour came, emerge from it, and first beheld the glorious sun smile on them, and with their many-colored glances smile back on him. How they served next, let us say, as eyes of heathen idols, and received worship. How they had then, by fortune of war or theft, been knocked out, and exchanged among camp sutlers for a little spirituous liquor, and bought by Jews, and worn as signets on the fingers of tawny or white majesties, and again been lost, with the fingers too, and perhaps life, as by Charles the Rash among the mud ditches of Nancy, in old forgotten glorious victories. And so, through innumerable varieties of fortune, had come at last to the cutting wheel of Baumer, to be united in strange fellowship with comrades also blown together from all ends of the earth, each with a history of its own. Could these aged stones, the youngest of them 6,000 years of age and upwards, have spoken? There were an experience for philosophy to teach by. But now, as was said, by little caps of gold and daintiest rings of the same, they are all being, so to speak, enlisted under Baumer's flag, made to take rank and file in new order, no jewel asking his neighbor whence he came, and parade there for a season only, and then to disperse and enlist anew ad infinitum. In such inexplicable wise are jewels, and men also, and indeed all earthly things, jumbled together and asunder, and shoveled and wafted to and fro in our inexplicable chaos of a world. This was what Bamer called making his necklace. So, in fact, do other men speak, and with even less reason. How many men, for example, hast thou heard talk of making money? Of making, say, 1.5 million of money? Of which 1.5 million, how much, if one were to look into it, had they made? The accurate value of their industry, not a sixpence more. Their making, then, was but, like Bamer's, a clutching and a heaping together, by and by to be followed also by a dispersion. Made? Thou too vain individual! Were these towered ashlar edifices, were these fair bounteous leas, with their bosky umbrages and yellow harvests, and the sunshine that lights them from above, and the granite rocks and fire reservoirs that support them from below, made by thee? I think by another. The very shilling that thou hast was dug by man's force in Carinthia and Paraguay, smelted sufficiently, and stamped, as would seem, not without the advice of our late defender of the faith, His Majesty George IV. Thou hast it, and holdest it, but whether and in what sense thou hast made any farthing of it, thyself canst not say. If the courteous reader ask, what things then are made by man, I will answer him, very few indeed. A heroism, a wisdom, a God-given volition that has realized itself, is made now and then. For example, some 5 or 6 books since the creation have been made. Strange that there are not more, for surely every encouragement is held out. Could I, or thou, happy reader, but make one, the world would let us keep it unstolen for 14 whole years, and take what we could get for it. But, in a word, Monsieur Bamer has made his necklace, what he calls made it. Happy man is he. From a drawing, as large as reality, kindly furnished by Taunet, print-seller of the Rue d'Enfer, and again in late years by the Abbé Georgel, in the 2nd volume of his Memoirs, curious readers can still fancy to themselves what a princely ornament it was. A row of 17 glorious diamonds, almost as large as filberts, encircle, not too tightly, the neck a first time. Looser, gracefully fastened thrice to these, a 3-wreathed festoon, and pendants enough, simple pear-shaped, multiple star-shaped, or clustering amorphous, encircle it, and wreath it a 2nd time. Loosest of all, softly flowing round from behind, in priceless catenary, rush down 2 broad 3-fold rows, seem to knot themselves round a very queen of diamonds on the bosom, then rush on, again separated, as if there were length in plenty. The very tassels of them were a fortune for some men. And now, lastly, 2 other inexpressible 3-fold rows, also with their tassels, will, when the necklace is on and clasped, unite themselves behind into a doubly inexpressible 6-fold row, and so stream down, together or asunder, over the hind neck. We may fancy like lambent zodiacal or aurora borealis fire. All these on a neck of snow slight tinged with rose bloom, and within it royal life. Amidst the blaze of lustres, in sylphish movements, espiègleries, coquetries, and minuet mazes, with every movement a flash of star rainbow colors, bright almost as the movement of the fair young soul it emblems. A glorious ornament, fit only for the sultana of the world. indeed only attainable by such, for it is valued at 1,800,000 livres, say, in round numbers and sterling money, between 80 and 90,000 pounds. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 3. The Necklace Cannot Be Sold. Miscalculating Bemer, the Sultana of the earth shall never wear that necklace of thine. No neck, either royal or vassal, shall ever be the lovelier for it. In the present distressed state of our finances, with the American war raging round us, where thinkest thou are 80,000 pounds to be raised for such a thing? In this hungry world, thou fool, these 500 and odd diamonds, good only for looking at, are intrinsically worth less to us than a string of as many dry Irish potatoes, on which a famishing sans-culotte might fill his belly. Little knowest thou, laughing joaillier, bijoutier, great in thy pride of place, in thy pride of savoir-faire, what the world has in store for thee. Thou laughest there. By and by thou wilt laugh on the wrong side of thy face, mainly. While the necklace lay in stucco effigy, and the stones of it were still circulating in commerce, Du Barry's was the neck it was meant for. Unhappily, as all dogs, male and female, have but their day, her day is done. And now, so busy has death been, she sits retired, on a mere half-pay, without prospects, at Saint-Cyr. A generous France will buy no more neck ornaments for her. Oh, heaven! The guillotine axe is already forging, north in Swedish Dalecarlia, by sledgehammers and fire, south, too, by taxes and tailles. That will shear her neck in twain. But, indeed, what of Du Barry? A foul worm, hatched by royal heat on foul composts into a flaunting butterfly, now diswinged, and again a worm. Are there not kings' daughters and kings' consorts? Is not decoration the first wish of a female heart? Often also, if such heart is empty, the last? The Portuguese ambassador is here, and his rigorous Pombal is no longer minister. There is an infanta in Portugal, purposing by heaven's blessing to wed. Singular! The Portuguese ambassador, though without fear of Pombal, praises, but will not purchase. Or why not our own loveliest Marie Antoinette, once Dauphiness only, now every inch a queen? What neck in the whole earth would it beseem better? It is fit only for her. Alas, Bemer! King Louis has an eye for diamonds, but he too is without overplus of money. His high queen herself answers queen-like, "We have more need of 74s than of necklaces." Laudator et alget! Not without a qualmish feeling we apply next to the queen and king of the two Sicilies. In vain, O Bemer! In crowned heads there is no hope for thee. Not a crowned head of them can spare the 80,000 pounds. The age of chivalry is gone, and that of bankruptcy is come. A dull, deep, presaging movement rocks all thrones. Bankruptcy is beating down the gate, and no chancellor can longer barricade her out. She will enter, and the shoreless fire-lava of democracy is at her back. Well may kings, a second time, sit still with awful eye, and think of far other things than necklaces. Thus for poor Bemer are the mournfullest days and nights appointed, and this high-promising year, 1780, as we laboriously guess and gather, stands blacker than all others in his calendar. In vain shall he, on his sleepless pillow, more and more desperately revolve the problem. It is a problem of the insoluble sort, a true irreducible case of Cardan. The diamond necklace will not sell. End of chapter 3. Chapter 4 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. Affinities, the two fixed ideas. Nevertheless, a man's little work lies not isolated, stranded. A whole busy world, a whole native element of mysterious, never-resting force environs it. We'll catch it up, we'll carry it forward, or else backward. Always, infallibly, either as living growth, or at worst as well-rotted manure, the thing done will come to use. Often, accordingly, for a man that had finished any little work, this were the most interesting question. In such a boundless whirl of a world, what hook will it be, and what hooks that shall catch up this little work of mine, and whirl it also through such a dance? A question, we need not say, which, in the simplest of cases, would bring the whole Royal Society to a nonplus. Good Corsican Letitia, while thou nursest thy little Napoleon, and he answers thy mother's smile with those deep eyes of his, a world-famous French Revolution, with federations of the Champ de Mars, and September massacres, and baker's customers en queue, is getting ready. Many a Danton and Desmoulins, prim-visaged, Tartuffe-looking Robespierre, as yet all schoolboys, and Marat, weeping bitter rheum as he pounds horse drugs, are preparing the fittest arena for him. Thus, too, while poor Bamer is busy with those diamonds of his, picking them out of commerce, and his craftsmen are grinding and setting them, a certain ecclesiastical coadjutor and grand almoner and prospective commendator and cardinal is in Austria, hunting and giving suppers, for whom mainly it is that Bamer and his craftsmen so employ themselves. Strange enough, once more, the foolish jeweler at Paris, making foolish trinkets, the foolish ambassador at Vienna, making blunders and debaucheries, these two, all uncommunicating, wide asunder as the poles, are hourly forging for each other the wonderfulest hook and eye, which will hook them together one day into artificial Siamese twins for the astonishment of mankind. Prince Louis de Rohan is one of those select mortals born to honors as the sparks fly upwards, and, alas, also, as all men are, to troubles no less. Of his genesis and descent much might be said by the curious in such matters, yet perhaps, if we weigh it well, intrinsically little. He can, by diligence and faith, be traced back some handbreadth or two, some century or two, but after that merges in the mere blood royal of Brittany. Long, long on this side of the northern immigrations, he is not so much as to be sought for, and leaves the whole space onwards from that into the bosom of eternity, a blank, marked only by one point, the fall of man. However, and what alone concerns us, his kindred in these quite recent times have been much about the most Christian majesty, could there pick up what was going. In particular, they have had a turn of some continuance for cardinalship and commendatorship. Safest trades, these, of the calm, do-nothing sort. In the do-something line, in generalship or such like, witness poor cousin Soubise at Rossbach, they might not fare so well. In any case, the actual Prince Louis, coadjutor at Strasbourg, while his uncle, the Cardinal Archbishop, has not yet deceased, and left him in his dignities, but only fallen sick, already takes his place on one grandest occasion. He, thrice happy coadjutor, receives the fair, young, trembling Dauphiness, Marie Antoinette, on her first entrance into France, and can there, as ceremonial fugleman, with fit bearing and semblance, being a tall man of 36, do the needful. Of his other performances up to this date, a refined history had rather say nothing. In fact, if the tolerating mind will meditate it with any sympathy, what could poor Rohan perform? Performing needs light, needs strength, and a firm, clear footing, all of which had been denied him. Nourished from birth with the choicest physical spoon-meat, indeed, yet also with no better spiritual doctrine and evangel of life than a French court of Louis the Well-Beloved could yield. Gifted, moreover, and this too was but a new perplexity for him, with shrewdness enough to see through much, with vigor enough to despise much. Unhappily, not with vigor enough to spurn it from him and be forever enfranchised of it. He awakes at man's stature with man's wild desires, in a world of the merest incoherent lies and delirium, himself a nameless mass of delirious incoherences, covered over at most and held in a little by conventional politesse and a cloak of prospective cardinal's plush. Are not intrigues, might Rohan say, the industry of this our universe? Nay, is not the universe itself at bottom properly an intrigue? A most Christian majesty, in the Pakosils, he, thou seest, is the god of this lower world. In the fight of life, our war-banner and celestial Antutonica is a strumpet's petticoat. These are thy gods, O France. What in such singular circumstances could poor Rohan's creed and world theory be that he should perform thereby? Atheism? Alas, no, not even atheism, only Machiavellism, and the indestructible faith that ginger is hot in the mouth. Get ever new and better ginger, therefore. Chew it ever the more diligently. 'Tis all thou hast to look to, and that only for a day. Ginger enough, poor Louis de Rohan. Too much of ginger. Whatsoever of it for the 5 senses, money or money's worth, or backstairs diplomacy, can buy. Nay, for the 6th sense, too, the far spicier ginger, antecedents of thy fellow creatures, merited, at least, by infinitely finer housing than theirs. Coadjutor of Strasbourg, Archbishop of Strasbourg, Grand Almoner of France, Commander of the Order of the Holy Ghost, Cardinal, Commendator of St. Vaast de Arras, one of the fattest benefices here below. All these shall be housings for Monseigneur. To all these shall his Jesuit nursing mother, our Vulpine Abbé Georgel, through fair court weather and through foul, triumphantly bear him, and wrap him with them, fat, somnolent nursling as he is. By the way, a most assiduous, ever-wakeful abbé is this Georgel, and holy Monseigneur's. He has scouts dim flying, far out in the great deep of the world's business, has spider threads that overnet the whole world. Himself sits in the center, ready to run. In vain shall king and queen combine against Monseigneur. I was at Monsieur de Maurepas' pillow before 6, persuasively wagging my sleek coif, and the sleek Reynard head under it. I managed it all for him. Here, too, on occasion of Reynard Georgel, we could not but reflect what a singular species of creature your Jesuit must have been. Outwardly, you would say, a man, the smooth semblance of a man. Inwardly, to the center, filled with stone. Yet in all breathing things, even in stone Jesuits, are inscrutable sympathies. How else does a Reynard Abbé so loyally give himself, soul and body, to a somnolent Monseigneur? How else does the poor tit, to the neglect of its own eggs and interests, nurse up a huge lumbering cuckoo, and think it pains all paid, if the soot-brown stupidity will merely grow bigger and bigger? Enough by Jesuitic or other means, Prince Louis de Rohan shall be passively kneaded and baked into commendator of St. Vaast and much else, and truly such a commendator as hardly, since King Thierry, first of the Fenians, founded that establishment has played his part there. Such, however, have nature and art combined together to make Prince Louis, a figure thrice clothed with honors, with plush and civic and ecclesiastic garniture of all kinds, but in itself little other than an amorphous congeries of contradictions, somnolence and violence, foul passions and foul habits. It is by his plush cloaks and wrappages mainly, as above hinted, that such a figure sticks together, what we call coheres in any measure. Were it not for these, he would flow out boundlessly on all sides. Conceive him farther, with a kind of radical vigor and fire, for he can see clearly at times, and speak fiercely. Yet left in this way to stagnate and ferment, and lie overlaid with such floods of fat material, have we not a true image of the shamefullest mud volcano, gurgling and sluttishly simmering amid continual steamy indistinctness, except, as was hinted, in wind gusts, with occasional terrifico absurd mud explosions? This, garnish it and fringe it never so handsomely, is, alas, the intrinsic character of Prince Louis. A shameful spectacle, such, however, as the world has beheld many times, as it were to be wished, but is not yet to be hoped, the world might behold no more. Nay, are not all possible delirious incoherences, outward and inward, summed up for poor Rohan in this one incrediblest incoherence, that he, Prince Louis de Rohan, is named priest, cardinal of the church, a debauched, merely libidinous mortal, lying there quite helpless, dissolute, as we will say, whom to see church cardinal, symbolical hinge or main corner of the invisible holy in this world, an inhabitant of Saturn might split with laughing, if he did not rather swoon with pity and horror. Prince Louis, as ceremonial fugleman at Strasbourg, might have hoped to make some way with the fair young Dauphiness, but seems not to have made any. Perhaps in those great days, so trying for a 15 years' bride and Dauphiness, the fair Antoinette was too preoccupied. Perhaps in the very face and looks of prospective Cardinal Prince Louis, her fair young soul read, all unconsciously, an incoherent rueism, bottomless mud volcanoism, from which she, by instinct, rather recoiled. However, as above hinted, he is now gone in these years on embassy to Vienna, with 24 pages, if our remembrance of Abbé Giorgel serve, of noble birth, all in scarlet breeches, and such a retinue and parade as drowns even his fat revenue in perennial debt. Above all things, his Jesuit familiar is with him, for so everywhere they must manage. Eminent Rohan is the cloak, Jesuit Giorgel the man or automaton within it. Rohan indeed sees Poland a partitioning, or rather Giorgel with his masked Austrian traitor on the ramparts sees it for him. But what can he do? He exhibits his 24 scarlet pages, who we find smuggle to quite unconscionable lengths, rides through a Catholic procession, prospective cardinal though he be, because it is too long and keeps him from an appointment, hunts, gallants, gives suppers, Sardanapalus-wise, the finest ever seen in Vienna. Abbé Giorgel, as we fancy it was, writes a dispatch in his name every fortnight, mentions in one of these that Maria Theresa stands indeed with the handkerchief in one hand, reaping for the woes of Poland, but with this sword in the other hand, ready to cut Poland in sections and take her share. Untimely joke, which proved to Prince Louis the root of unspeakable chagrins. For Minister d'Aiguillon, much against his duty, communicates the letter to King Louis. Louis to Du Barry, to season her souper, and laughs over it. The thing becomes a court joke. The finally pious Dauphiness hears it, and remembers it. Accounts go, moreover, that Rohan spake censuringly of the Dauphiness to her mother. This is probably but hearsay and false. The devout Maria Theresa disliked him, and even despised him, and vigorously labored for his recall. Thus, in rosy sleep and somnambulism, or awake only to quaff the full wine-cup of the scarlet woman his mother, and again sleep and somnambulate, does the prospective cardinal and commendator pass his days. Unhappy man! This is not a world which was made in sleep, which is just safe to sleep and somnambulate in. And that loud roaring loom of time, where above 900 millions of hungry men for one item restlessly weave and work, so many threads fly humming from their eternal spindles, and swift invisible shuttles far darting to the ends of the world, complex enough. At this hour a miserable Bamer in Paris, whom thou wottest not of, is spinning of diamonds and gold a paltry thrum that will go nigh to strangle the life out of thee. Meanwhile, Louis the Well-Beloved has left forever his Parc aux Cerfs, and amid the scarce suppressed hootings of the world, taken up his last lodging at Saint-Denis. Feeling that it was all over, for the smallpox has the victory, and even Dubarry is off, he, as the Abbé Georgel records, made the amende honorable to God. These are his reverence's own words. Had a true repentance of 3 days' standing, and so, continues the Abbé, fell asleep in the Lord. Asleep in the Lord, Monsieur l'Abbé. If such a mass of laziness and lust fell asleep in the Lord, who, fanciest thou, is it that falls asleep elsewhere? Enough that he did fall asleep, that thick-wrapped in the blanket of night, under what keeping we ask not. He never through endless time can, for his own or our sins insult the face of the sun any more. And so now we go onward, if not to less degrees of beastliness, yet at least and worst to cheering varieties of it. Louis XVI therefore reigns, and, under the Sieur Gamin, makes locks. His fair Dauphiness has become a queen. Eminence Rohan is home from Vienna to condole and to congratulate. He bears a letter from Maria Theresa, hopes the queen will not forget old ceremonial fuglemen and friends of the Dauphiness. Heaven and earth! The Dauphiness queen will not see him. Orders the letter to be sent her. The king himself signifies briefly that he will be asked for when wanted. Alas! At court our motion is the delicatest, unsurest. We go spinning, as it were, on teetotums by the edges of bottomless deeps. Rest is fall, so is one false whirl. A moment ago Eminence Rohan seemed waltzing with the best, but, behold, his teetotum has carried him over. There is an inversion of the center of gravity, and so now, heels uppermost, velocity increasing as the time, space as the square of the time, he rushes. On a man of poor Rohan's somnolence and violence, the sympathizing mind can estimate what the effect was. Consternation, stupefaction, the total jumble of blood, brains, and nervous spirit, in ear and heart only universal hubbub and louder singing of the agitated air, a fall comparable to that of Satan. Men have indeed been driven from court, and borne it according to ability. Choiseul, in these very years, retired Parthian-like, with a smile or scowl, and drew half the court host along with him. Our Wolsey, though once an ego et rex meus, could journey, it is said, without strait waistcoat to his monastery, and there, telling beads, look forward to a still longer journey. The melodious, too soft-strung Racine, when his king turned his back on him, emitted one meek wail and submissively died. But the case of Coadjutor de Rohan differed from all these. No loyalty was in him that he should die, no self-help that he should live, no faith that he should tell beads. His is a mud-volcanic character, incoherent, mad from the very foundation of it. Think, too, that his courtiership, for how could any noblesse enter there, was properly a gambling speculation. The loss of his trump queen of hearts can bring nothing but flat, unredeemed despair. No other game has he in this world or in the next. And then the exasperating why, the how came it? For that Rohanic or Georgielic sprightliness of the handkerchief in one hand and sword of the other, if indeed that could have caused it all, has quite escaped him. In the name of Friar Bacon's head, what was it? Imagination, with desperation to drive her, may fly to all points of space, and returns with wearied wings and no tidings. Behold me here. This, which is the first grand certainty for man in general, is the first and last and only one for poor Rohan. And then his here! Alas, looking upwards he can eye from his burning marl the azure realms once his, and cousin Countess du Marsin, and so many Richelieus, Polignacs, and other happy angels, male and female, all blissfully gyrating there, while he... Nevertheless, hope, in the human breast, though not in the diabolic, springs eternal. The outcast Rohan bends all his thoughts, faculties, prayers, purposes to one object he will attain, or go to Bedlam. How many ways he tries, what days and nights of conjecture, consultation, what written unpublished reams of correspondence, protestation, backstairs diplomacy of every rubric. How many suppers has he eaten? How many given? In vain. It is his morning song and his evening prayer. From innumerable falls he rises, only to fall again. Behold him even with his red stockings, at dusk, in the garden of Trianon. He has bribed the concierge, will see her majesty in spite of etiquette and fate. Peradventure, pitying his long, sad king's evil, she will touch him and heal him. In vain, says the female historian Campan. The chariot of majesty shoots rapidly by, with high-plumed heads in it. Eminence is known by his red stockings, but not looked at, only laughed at, and left standing like a pillar of salt. Thus through 10 long years of new resolve and new despondency, of flying from Saverne to Paris, and from Paris to Saverne has it lasted, hope deferred making the heart sick. Reynard Georgel and Cousin de Marsan, by eloquence, by influence, and being at Monsieur Maurepas' pillow before 6, have secured the archbishopric, the grand almonership, the cardinalship by the medium of Poland, and, lastly, to tinker many rents and appease the Jews, that fattest commendatorship founded by King Thierry the Do-Nothing, perhaps with a view to such cases. All good, languidly croaks Rohan, yet all not the one thing needful. Alas, the Queen's eyes do not yet shine on me. Abbé Georgel admits, in his own polite, diplomatic way, that the mud volcano was much agitated by these trials, and in time quite changed. Monseigneur deviated into cabalistic courses, after elixirs, philtres, and the philosopher's stone. That is, the volcanic steam grew thicker and heavier. At last, by Cagliostro's magic, for Cagliostro and the cardinal by elective affinity must meet, it sank into the opacity of perfect London fog. So, too, if Monsignor grew choleric, wrapped himself up in reserve, spoke roughly to his domestics and dependents, were not the terrifico-absurd mud explosions becoming more frequent? Alas, what wonder! Some 49 winters have now fled over his eminence, for it is 1783, and his beard falls white to the shaver. But age for him brings no benefit of experience. He is possessed by a fixed idea. Foolish eminence! Is the earth grown all barren and of a snuff color because one pair of eyes in it look on thee askance? Surely thou hast thy body there yet, and what of soul might from the first reside in it? Nay, a warm, snug body, with not only 5 senses, sound still in spite of much tear and wear, but most eminent clothing besides, clothed with authority over much, with red cardinal's cloak, red cardinal's hat, with commendatorship, grand almonership, so kind have thy fripiers been, with dignities and dominions too tedious to name. The stars rise nightly, with tidings, for thee too, if thou wilt listen, From the infinite blue, sun and moon being vicissitudes of season, dressing green with flower borderings and cloth of gold this ancient ever young earth of ours, and filling her breasts with all-nourishing mother's milk. Wilt thou work? The whole encyclopedia, not Diderot's only, but the Almighty's, is there for thee to spread thy broad faculty upon. Or if thou hast no faculty, no sense, hast thou not, as already suggested, senses to the number of 5? What victuals thou wishest, command. With what wine savoureth thee, be filled. Already thou art a false lascivious priest, with revenues of, say, 250,000 sterling, and no mind to mend. Eat, foolish eminence, eat with voracity, leaving the shot till afterwards. In all this the eyes of Marie Antoinette can neither help thee nor hinder. And yet what is the cardinal, dissolute mud volcano there he be, more foolish herein than all sons of Adam? Give this wisest of us once a fixed idea, which, though a temporary madness, who has not had, and see where his wisdom is. The chamois hunter serves his doomed 7 years in the quicksilver mines, returns salivated to the marrow of the backbone, and next morning goes forth to hunt again. Behold, Cardalian king of urinals, with a woeful ballad to his mistress's eyebrow. He blows out, vertrevies, his foolish existence because she will not have it to keep. Heeds not that there are some 500 millions of other mistresses in this noble planet, most likely much such as she. O foolish men! They sell their inheritance as their mother did hers, though it is paradise for a crochet. Will they not, in every age, dare not only grape-shot and gallows ropes, but hellfire itself for better sauce to their victuals? My friends, beware of fixed ideas. Here, accordingly, is poor Baymer with one in his head, too. He has been hawking his irreducible case of Cardan, that necklace of his, these 3 long years, through all palaces and ambassadors' hotels over the old 9 kingdoms, or more of them than there are now, searching, sifting earth, sea, and air for a customer, to take his necklace in pieces, and so, losing only his manual labor and expected glory, dissolve his fixed idea and fixed diamonds into current ones. This were simply casting out the devil from himself, a miracle and perhaps more, for he too has a devil or devils, one mad object that he strives at, that he too will attain or go to Bedlam. Creditors, snarling, hound him on from without. Mocked hopes, lost labors, bear bait him from within. To these torments his fixed idea keeps him chained. In 36 weary revolutions of the moon, was it wonderful that the man's brain had got dried a little? Behold, one day, being court jeweller, he too bursts, almost as Rohan had done, into the queen's retirement or apartment, flings himself, as Campan again has recorded, at her majesty's feet, and there, with clasped uplifted hands, in passionate nasal gutturals, with streaming tears and loud sobs, entreats her to do one of 2 things, either to buy his necklace, or else graciously to vouchsafe him her royal permission to drown himself in the river Seine. Her Majesty, pitying the distracted, bewildered state of the man, calmly points out the plain 3rd course. Dépecez votre collier. Take your necklace in pieces, adding withal, in a tone of queenly rebuke, that if he would drown himself, he at all times could without her furtherance. Ah, had he drowned himself with the necklace in his pocket, and Cardinal Commendator at his skirts? Kings, above all, beautiful queens, as far radiant symbols on the pinnacles of the world, are so exposed to madmen. Should these 2 fixed ideas that beset this beautifulest queen, and almost burst through her palace walls, one day unite, and this not to jump into the river Seine, what maddest result may be looked for? End of chapter 4. Chapter 5 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 5. The Artist. If the reader has hitherto, in our too figurative language, seen only the figurative hook and the figurative eye, which Bémer and Rohan, far apart, were respectively fashioning for each other, he shall now see the cunning milliner, an actual unmetaphorical milliner, by whom these two individuals, with their two implements, are brought into contact, and hooked together into stupendous artificial Siamese twins, after which the whole notice and solution will naturally combine and unfold itself. Jeanne de Saint-Remy, by courtesy or otherwise Countess styled also of Valois and even of France, has now, in this year of grace 1783, known the world for some 27 summers, and had crooks in her lot. She boasts herself descended, by what is called natural generation, from the blood royal of France. Henri II, before that fatal tourney-lance entered his right eye and ended him, appears to have had, successively or simultaneously, 4 unmentionable women. And so, in vice of the third of these, came a certain Henri de Saint-Remy into this world, and, as high and puissant lord, ate his victuals and spent his days on an allotted domain of Fontaine, near Baux-sur-Aube, in Champagne. Of high and puissant lords, at this Fontaine, 6 other generations followed, and thus ultimately, in a space of some 2 centuries, succeeded in realizing this brisk little Jeanne de Saint-Remy here in question. But what a falling off! The royal family of France has well nigh forgotten its left-hand collaterals. The last high and puissant lord, much clipped by his predecessors, falling into drink and left by a scandalous world to drink his pitcher dry, had to alienate by degrees his whole worldly possessions, down almost to the indispensable or inexpressibles, and die at last in the Paris Hotel Dieu, glad that it was not on the street. So that he has, indeed, given a sort of bastard royal life to little Jeanne and her little brother, but not the smallest earthly provender to keep it in. The mother in her extremity forms the wonderfulest connections, and little Jeanne with her little brother go out into the highways to beg. A charitable Countess Boulainvilliers, struck with the little bright-eyed tatterdemalion from the carriage window, picks her up, has her scoured, clothed, and rears her in her fluctuating miscellaneous way to be, about the age of 20, a nondescript of mantua-maker, soubrette, court-beggar, fine lady, abigail, and scion of royalty. Sad combination of trades. The court, after infinite soliciting, puts one off with a hungry dole of a little more than £30 a year. Nay, the audacious Count Boulainvilliers dares, with what purposes he knows best, to offer some suspicious presents, whereupon his good countess, especially as mantua-making languishes, thinks it could not but be fit to go down to Baux-sur-Aube, and there see whether no fractions of that alienated Fontaine property, held perhaps on insecure tenure, may, by terror or cunning, be recoverable. Burning her paper patterns, pocketing her pension till more come, Mademoiselle Jeanne sallies out thither in her 23rd year. Nourished in this singular way, alternating between saloon and kitchen table, with the loftiest of pretensions, meanest of possessions, our poor high and puissant mantua-maker has realized for herself a face not beautiful, yet with a certain piquancy, dark hair, blue eyes, and a character which the present writer, a determined student of human nature, declares to be undecipherable. Let the psychologist try it. Jeanne de Saint-Remy de Valois de France actually lived and worked and was. She has even published, at various times, 3 considerable volumes of autobiography, with loose leaves in courts of justice of unknown number, wherein he that runs may read, but not understand. Strange volumes, more like the screeching of distracted night birds, suddenly disturbed by the torch of police fowlers, than the articulate utterance of a rational, unfeathered biped. Carefully admitting these statements to be all lies, we ask how any mortal could or should so lie. The psychologists, however, commit one sore mistake, that of searching in every character named human for something like a conscience. Being mere contemplative recluses, for the most part, and feeling that morality is the heart of life, they judge that with all the world it is so. Nevertheless, as practical men are aware, life can go on in excellent vigor without crotchet of that kind. What is the essence of life? Volition? Go deeper down, you find a much more universal root and characteristic: digestion. While digestion lasts, life cannot, in philosophical language, be said to be extinct, and digestion will give rise to volitions enough, at any rate, to desires and attempts which may pass for such. He who looks neither before nor after, any farther than the larder and stateroom, which latter is properly the finest compartment of the larder, will need no world theory, creed, as it is called, or scheme of duties, lightly leaving the world to wag as it likes with any theory or none. His grand object is a theory and practice of ways and means. Not goodness or badness is the type of him, only shiftiness or shiftlessness. And now, disburdened of this obstruction, let the psychologist consider it under a bolder view. Consider the brisk Jean de Saint-Remy, de Saint-Shifty, as a spark of vehement life, not developed into will of any kind, yet fully into desires of all kinds, and cast into such a life element as we have seen. Vanity and hunger, a princess of the blood, yet whose father had sold his inexpressibles. Uncertain whether foster-daughter of a fond countess with hopes sky-high, or supernumerary soubrette, with not enough of mantua-making. In a word, gigmanity disgigged. One of the saddest, pitiable, unpitied predicaments of man. She is of that light, unreflecting class, of that light, unreflecting sex, varium semper et mutabile. And then her fine ladyism, though a purseless one, capricious, coquettish, and with all the finer sensibilities of the heart, now in the rackets, now in the sullens. Vivid in contradictory resolves, laughing, weeping without reason, though these acts are said to be signs of reason. Consider, too, how she has had to work her way all along by flattery and cajolery, wheedling, eavesdropping, namby-pambying, how she needs wages and knows no other productive trades. Thought can hardly be said to exist in her, only perception and device. With an understanding lynx-eyed for the surface of things, but which pierces beyond the surface of nothing. Every individual thing, for she has never seized the heart of it, turns up a new face to her every new day, and seems a thing changed, a different thing. Thus sits, or rather vehemently bobs and hovers, her vehement mind in the middle of a boundless, many-dancing whirlpool of gilt shreds, paper clippings, and windfalls, to which the revolving chaos of my Uncle Toby's smoke-jack was solidity and regularity. Reader, thou for thy sins must have met with such fair irrationals, fascinating with their lively eyes, with their quick, snappish fancies, distinguished in the higher circles, in fashion, even in literature. They hum and buzz there, on graceful film wings, searching, nevertheless, with the wonderfulest skill for honey, untamable as flies. Wonderfulest skill for honey, we say. And pray, mark that, as regards this Countess de Saint-Shifty, her instinct of genius is prodigious. her appetite fierce. In any foraging speculation of the private kind, she, unthinking as you call her, will be worth 100 thinkers. And so of such untamable flies, the untameablest, Mademoiselle Jeanne, is now buzzing down in the Bar-sur-Aube diligence to inspect the honey jars of Fontaine, and see and smell whether there be any flaws in them. Alas, at Fontaine we can, with sensibility, behold straw roofs we were nursed under. Farmers courteously offer cooked milk and other country messes, but no soul will part with his landed property, for which, though cheap, he declares hard money was paid. The honey jars are all close, then? However, a certain Monsieur de Lamotte, a tall gendarme home on furlough from Lunéville, is now at bar, pays us attentions, becomes quite particular in his attentions, for we have a face with a certain piquancy, the liveliest glib snappish tongue, the liveliest kittenish manner, not yet hardened into cathood, with 30 pounds a year and prospects. Monsieur de Lamotte, indeed, is as yet only a private sentinel, but then a private sentinel in the gendarmes. And did not his father die fighting at the head of his company at Minden? Why not, in virtue of our own countessship, dub him too count? By left-hand collateralism, get him advanced. Finished before the furlough is done, the untameablest of flies has again buzzed off in wedlock with Monsieur de Lamotte, if not to get honey, yet to escape spiders, and so lies in garrison at Lunéville amid coquetries and hysterics in gigmanity disconsolate enough. At the end of 4 long years, too long, Monsieur de Lamotte, or call him now Count de Lamotte, sees good to lay down his fighting gear, unhappily still only the musket, and become what is by certain moderns called a civilian. Not a civil law doctor, merely a citizen, one who does not live by being killed. Alas, cold eclipse has all along hung over the Lamotte household. Countess Boulainvilliers, it is true, writes in the most feeling manner, but then the royal finances are so deranged. Without personal pressing solicitation on the spot, no court solicitor, were his pension the meagerest, can hope to better it. At Lunéville the sun indeed shines, and there is a kind of life, but only an un-Parisian, half or quarter life. The very tradesmen grow clamorous, and no cunningly devised fable, ready money alone will appease them. Commandant Marquis d'Enchamp agrees with Madame Boulainvilliers that a journey to Paris were the project, whither also he himself is just going. Perfidious Commandant Marquis! His plan is seen through. He dares to presume to make love to a scion of royalty, or to hint that he could dare to presume to do it. Whereupon indignant Count de Lamotte, as we said, throws up his commission and down his firearms without further delay. The king loses a tall private sentinel. The world has a new blackleg. And Monsieur and Madame de Lamotte take places in the diligence for Strasbourg. Good foster mother Boulainvilliers, however, is no longer at Strasbourg. She is forward at the Archiepiscopal Palace in Saverne, on a visit there to His Eminence Cardinal Commendator Grand Almoner Archbishop Prince Louis de Rohan. Thus then has destiny at last brought it about. Thus, after long wanderings, on paths so far separate, has the time come in this late year 1783, when, of all the 900 millions of the earth's denizens, these pre-appointed 2 behold each other. The foolish cardinal, since no sublunary means, not even bribing of the Trianon concierge will serve, has taken to the superlunary. He is here, with his fixed idea and volcanic vaporosity darkening, under Cagliostro's management, into thicker and thicker opaque of the black art itself. To the glance of hungry genius, Cardinal and Cagliostro could not but have meaning. A flush of astonishment, a sigh over boundless wealth, for the mountains of debt lie invisible, in the hands of boundless stupidity, some vague looming of indefinite hope. All this one can well fancy. But alas, what to a high plush cardinal is a now insolvent scion of royalty, though with a face of some piquancy? The good foster-mother's visit, in any case, can last but 3 days. Then, amid old namby-pambyings, with effusions of the nobler sensibilities and tears of pity, at least for oneself, Countess de Lamotte and husband must off with her to Paris and new possibilities at court. Only when the sky again darkens can this vague looming from Saverne look out by fits as a cheering weather sign. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 6. Will the two fixed ideas unite? However, the sky, according to custom, is not long in darkening again. The king's finances, we repeat, are in so distracted a state. No d'Ormesson, no Joly de Fleury, wearied with milking the already dry, will increase that scandalous 30 pounds of a scion of royalty by a single doit. Calonne himself, who has a willing ear and an encouraging word for all mortals whatsoever, only with difficulty, and by aid of Madame of France, raises it to some still miserable 65. Worst of all, the good foster-mother Boulainvilliers, in the few months, suddenly dies. The wretched widower, sitting there with his white handkerchief to receive condolences, with closed shutters, mortuary tapestries, and sepulchral cressets burning, which, however, the instant condolences are gone, he blows out to save oil, has the audacity again, amid crocodile tears, to drop hints. Nay, more, he, wretched man in all senses, abridges the Lamotte table, will besiege virtue both in the positive and negative way. The Lamottes, wintry as the world looks, cannot be gone too soon. As to Lamotte the husband, he, for shelter against much, decisively dives down to the subterranean shades of rascaldom, gambles, swindles, can hope to live miscellaneously, if not by the grace of God, yet by the oversight of the devil, for a time. Lamotte the wife also makes her packages, and waving the unseductive Count Boulainvilliers save all a disdainful farewell, removes to the Belle Image in Versailles, there within wind of court, in attic apartments, on poor water-gruel board, resolves to await what can betide. So much, in few months of this fateful year, 1783, has come and gone. Poor Jean de Saint-Remy de Lamotte Valois, ex-mantua-maker, scion of royalty! What eye, looking into those bare attic apartments and water-gruel platters of the Belle Image, but must, in spite of itself, grow dim with almost a kind of tear for thee. There thou art, with thy quick lively glances, face of a certain piquancy, thy gossamer untamable character, snappish sallies, glib all-managing tongue, thy whole incarnated, garmented, and so sharply appetent spark of life, cast down alive into this world, without vote of thine, for the elective franchises have not yet got to that length, and wouldst so fain live there. Paying scot and lot, providing or fresh scouring silk court dresses, always keeping a gig, thou must hawk and shark to and fro, from anteroom to anteroom, become a kind of terror to all men in place, and women that influence such. Dance not light Ionic measures, but attendance merely. Have weepings, thanksgiving effusions, aulic, almost forensic eloquence. perhaps eke out thy thin livelihood by some coquetries in the small way, and so, most poverty-stricken, cold-blighted, yet with young, keen blood struggling against it, spin forward thy unequal, feeble thread, which the Atropos scissors will soon clip. Surely now, if ever, were that vague looming from Saverne welcome as a weather sign. How doubly welcome is his plush eminence's personal arrival, for with the earliest spring he has come in person, as he periodically does, vaporific, driven by his fixed idea. Genius, of the mechanical, practical kind, what is it but a bringing together of two forces that fit each other, that will give birth to a third? Ever, from Tubal Cain's time, iron lay ready-hammered. Water also was boiling and bursting. Nevertheless, for want of a genius, there was yet no steam-engine. In his eminence, Prince Louis, in that huge, restless, incoherent being of his, depend on it, brave Countess, there are forces deep, manifold. Nay, a fixed idea concentrates the whole huge incoherence, as it were, into one force. Cannot the eye of genius discover its fellow? Communing much with the court Versailles, our brave Countess has more than once heard talk of Baymer, of his necklace and threatened death by water. In the course of gossiping and tattling, this topic from time to time emerges, is commented upon with empty laughter, as if there lay no farther meaning in it. To the common eye there is indeed none, but to the eye of genius, in some moment of inspiration, the question rises on our brave Lamotte, were not this, of all extant forces, the cognate one that would unite with Eminence Rohan's? Great moment, light beaming, fire flashing, like birth of Minerva, like all moments of creation. Fancy how pulse and breath flutter, almost stop in the greatness. The great, not divine idea, the great diabolic idea, is too big for her. Thought, how often must we repeat it, rules the world. Fire and, in a less degree, frost. Earth and sea, for what is your swiftest ship or steamship but a thought embodied in wood? Reformed parliaments, rise and ruin of nations, sale of diamonds, all things obey thought. Countess de Saint-Remy de Lamotte, by power of thought, is now a made woman. With force of genius she represses, crushes deep down her undivine idea, bends all her faculty to realize it. Prepare thyself, reader, for a series of the most surprising dramatic representations ever exhibited on any stage. We hear tell of dramatists and scenic illusion, how natural, how elusive it was. If the spectator for some half-moment can half-deceive himself into the belief that it was real, he departs doubly content. With all which, and much more of the like, I have no quarrel. But what must be thought of the female dramatist who, for 18 long months, can exhibit the beautifulest Fata Morgana to a plush cardinal, wide awake, with 50 years on his head, and so lap him in her scenic illusion that he never doubts but it is all firm earth, and the pasteboard coulisse trees are producing Hesperides apples? Could Madame Lamotte, then, have written a Hamlet? I conjecture not. More goes to the writing of a Hamlet than completest imitation of all characters and things in this earth. There goes, before and beyond all, the rarest understanding of these, insight into their hidden essences and harmonies. Erasmus's ape, as is known in literary history, sat by while its master was shaving, and imitated every point of the process, but its own foolish beard grew never the smoother. As in looking at a finished drama, it were nowise meet that the spectator first of all got behind the scenes and saw the burnt corks, brayed resin, thunder barrels, and withered hunger-bitten men and women of which such heroic work was made. So here with the reader. A peep into the side scenes shall be granted him from time to time, but on the whole repress, O reader, that too insatiable scientific curiosity of thine. Let thy aesthetic feeling first have play. and witness what a prosperous grotto poor Eminence Rohan is led into, to be pleased he knows not why. Survey first what we might call the stage lights, orchestra, general structure of the theatre, mood and condition of the audience. The theatre is the world with its restless business and madness. Near at hand rise the royal domes of Versailles, mystery around them, and as background the memory of 1,000 years. By the side of the river Seine walks, haggard, wasted, a joaillier bijoutier de la Reine, with necklace in his pocket. The audience is a drunk Christopher Sly in the fittest humor. A fixed idea, driving him headlong over steep places, like that of the Gadarenes' swine, has produced a deceptibility as of desperation that will clutch at straws. Understand one other word. Cagliostro is prophesying to him. The quack of quacks has now for years had him in leading, transmitting predictions in cipher, questioning before hieroglyphic screens columns in a state of innocence for elixirs of life and philosopher's stone, unveiling in fuliginous clear obscure an imaginary majesty of nature. He isolates him more and more from all unpossessed men. Was it not enough that poor Rohan had become a dissolute, somnolent, violent, ever-vapory mud volcano, but black Egyptian magic must be laid on him? If perhaps, too, our Countess de Lamotte, with her blandishments? For, though not beautiful, she has a certain piquancy, etc. Enough. His poor Eminence sits in the fittest place, in the fittest mood, a newly awakened Christopher Sly, and with his small ale, too, beside him. Touch only the lights with fire-tipped rod, and let the orchestra, soft warbling, strike up their fa-ra-la-ra, fiddle-diddle-dee. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. Chapter 7. Marie Antoinette. Such a soft warbling fa-ra-la-ra was it to his Eminence when, in early January of the year 1784, our Countess first, mysteriously, and under seal of sworn secrecy, hinted to him that, with her winning tongue and great talent as anecdotic historian, she had worked a passage to the ear of Queen's Majesty itself. Gods! Dost thou bring with thee airs from heaven? Is thy face yet radiant with some reflex of that brightness beyond bright? Men with fixed idea are not as other men. To listen to a plain varnished tale, such as your dramatist can fashion, to ponder the words, to snuff them up as Ephraim did the east wind, and grow flatulent and drunk with them. What else could poor Eminence do? His poor, somnolent, so swift-rocked soul feels a new element infused into it. Turbid, resinous light, wide coruscating, glares over the waste of his imagination. Is he interested in the mysterious tidings? Hope has seized them. There is in the world nothing else that interests him. The secret friendship of queens is not a thing to be let sleep. Ever new palace interviews occur, yet in deepest privacy. For how should her Majesty awaken so many tongues of principalities and nobilities, male and female, that spitefully watch her? Above all, however, on the 2nd of February, that day of the procession of blue ribbons, much was spoken of. Somewhat, too, of Monseigneur de Rohan. Poor Monseigneur, hadst thou 3 long ears, thou'dst hear her. But will she not, perhaps, in some future priceless interview, speak a good word for thee? Thyself shalt speak it, happy Eminence, at least write it. Our tutelary Countess will be the bearer. On the 21st of March goes off that long exculpatory imploratory letter. It is the first letter that went off from Cardinal to Queen, to be followed in time by above 200 others, which are graciously answered by verbal messages, nay, at length by royal autographs on gilt paper, the whole delivered by our tutelary countess. The tutelary countess comes and goes, fetching and carrying, with the gravity of a Roman augur, inspects those extraordinary chicken bowels, and draws prognostics from them. Things are in fair train. The Dauphiness took some offence at Monseigneur, but the Queen has nigh forgotten it. No inexorable Queen, ah no, so good, so free, light-hearted, only sore beset with malicious Polignacs and others, at times also short of money. Marie Antoinette, as the reader well knows, has been much blamed for want of etiquette. Even now, when the other accusations against her have sunk down to oblivion, and the father of lies, this of wanting etiquette, survives her. In the castle of Ham at this hour, Monsieur de Polignac and company may be wringing their hands, not without an oblique glance at her for bringing them thither. She indeed discarded etiquette. Once, when her carriage broke down, she even entered a hackney coach. She would walk, too, at Trianon in mere straw hat, and perhaps muslin gown. Hence the knot of etiquette being loosed, the frame of society broke up, and those astonishing horrors of the French Revolution supervened. On what Damocles' hairs must the judgment sword hang over this distracted earth? Thus, however, it was that Tenterden steeple brought an influx of the Atlantic on us, and so Godwin Sands. Thus, too, might it be that because Father Noah took the liberty of, say, rinsing out his wine-vat, his ark was floated off, and a world drowned. Beautiful high-born, that wert so foully hurled low! For if thy being came to thee out of old Habsburg dynasties, came it not also, like my own, out of heaven? Sunt lacrimae rerum, et mentem mortalia tangunt. Oh, is there a man's heart that thinks without pity of those long months and years of slow-wasting ignominy, of thy birth, soft-cradled in imperial Schönbrunn, the winds of heaven not to visit thy face too roughly, thy foot too light on softness, thy eye on splendor, and then of thy death or 100 deaths, to which the guillotine and Fauquier Townville's judgment bar was but the merciful end? Look there, O man born of woman! The bloom of that fair face is wasted, the hair is grey with care, the brightness of those eyes is quenched, their lids hang drooping, the face is stony pale, as of one living in death-mean weeds, which her own hand has mended, attire the queen of the world. The death hurdle, where thou sittest, pale, motionless, which only curses environ, has to stop. A people, drunk with vengeance, will drink it again in full draught, looking at thee there. Far as the eye reaches, a multitudinous sea of maniac heads, the air deaf with their triumph yell. The living dead must shudder with yet one other pang. Her startled blood yet again suffuses with the hue of agony that pale face, which she hides with her hands. There is, then, no heart to say, God pity thee? Oh, think not of these. Think of him whom thou worshippest, the crucified, who also treading the winepress alone fronted sorrow still deeper, and triumphed over it, and made it holy, and built of it a sanctuary of sorrow for thee and all the wretched. Thy path of thorns is nigh ended. One long last look at the Tuileries, where thy step was once so light, where thy children shall not dwell. The head is on the block, the axe rushes. Dumb lies the world, that wild yelling world, and all its madness is behind thee. Beautiful high-born, that wert so foully hurled low, rest yet in thy innocent, gracefully heedless seclusion, unintruded on by me, while the rude hands have not yet desecrated it. Be the curtains that shroud him, if for the last time on this earth, a royal life still sacred to me. Thy fault in the French Revolution was that thou wert the symbol of the sin and misery of 1,000 years, that with St. Bartholomew's and Jacqueries, with gabelles and dragonnades and pox aux serfs, the heart of mankind was filled full and foamed over to all-involving madness. To no Napoleon, to no Cromwell wert thou wedded. Such sit not in the highest rank of themselves, are raised on high by the shaking and confounding of all the ranks. As poor peasants, how happy, worthy had ye too been, but by evil destiny ye were made a king and a queen of, and so both once more are become an astonishment and a byword to all times. End of chapter 7. Section 8 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. Chapter 8. The two fixed ideas will unite. Countess Lamotte, then, had penetrated into the confidence of the Queen. Those gilt-paper autographs were actually written by the Queen. Reader, forget not to repress that too insatiable scientific curiosity of thine. What I know is that a certain Villette de Retto, with military whiskers, a denizen of rascaldom, comrade there of Monsieur le Comte, is skilful in imitating hands. Certain it is also that Madame la Comtesse has penetrated into the Trianon, doorkeepers. Nay, as Campan herself must admit, she has met, at a man midwife's in Versailles, with worthy Queen's valet Leclos, or Declos, for there is no uniformity in it. With these, or with the like of these, she in the back parlour of the palace itself, if late enough, may pick a merry thought, sip the foam from a glass of champagne. No farther seek her honours to disclose, for the present, or anatomically dissect, as we said, those extraordinary chicken bowels from which she, and she alone, can read decrees of fate, and also realize them. Skeptic, seest thou his eminence waiting there, in the moonlight, hovering to and fro on the back terrace till she come out from the ineffable interview? He is close muffled, walks restlessly observant, shy also, and courting the shade. She comes. Up closer with thy capote, O eminence, down with thy broad brim, for she has an escort. 'Tis but the good Monsieur Queen's valet Leclos, and now he is sent back again, as no longer needful. Mark him, Monseigneur, nevertheless. Thou wilt see him yet another time. Monseigneur marks little. His heart is in the ineffable interview, in the gilt-paper autograph alone. Queen's valet Leclos? Methinks he has much the stature of Villette, denizen of rascaldom. Impossible! How our Countess managed with Cagliostro? Cagliostro, gone from Strasbourg, is as yet far distant, winging his way through dim space. Will not be here for months. Only his predictions in cipher are here. Here or there, however, Cagliostro to our Countess can be useful. At a glance, the eye of genius has descried him to be a bottomless slough of falsity, vanity, gulosity, and thick-eyed stupidity, of foulest material, but of fattest, fit compost for the plant she is rearing. Him who has deceived all Europe she can undertake to deceive. His columns, demonic masonries, Egyptian elixirs, what is all this to the light-giggling, exclusively practical Lamotte? It runs off from her, as all speculation, good, bad, and indifferent, has always done, like water from one in waxcloth dress. With the lips, meanwhile, she can honor it. Oil of flattery, the best patent anti-friction known, subdues all irregularities whatsoever. On Cagliostro, again, on his side, a certain uneasy feeling might for moments intrude itself. The raven loves not ravens. But what can he do? Nay, she is partly playing his game. Can he not spill her full cup yet, at the right season, and pack her out of doors? Oftenest in their joyous orgies, this light, fascinating countess, who perhaps has a design on his heart, seems to him but one other of those light papillones who have fluttered round him in all climates, whom with grim muzzle he has snapped by the thousand. Thus, what with light fascinating countess, what with quack of quacks, poor Eminence de Rohan lies safe, his mud volcano placidly simmering in thick Egyptian haze, withdrawn from all the world. Moving figures as of men he sees, takes not the trouble to look at. Court cousins rally him, are answered in silence, or, if it go too far, in mud explosions, terrifico absurd. Court cousins and all mankind are unreal shadows merely, Queen's favor the only substance. Nevertheless, the world, on its side too, has an existence, lies not idle in these days. It has got its Versailles Treaty signed long months ago, and the plenipotentiaries all home again for votes of thanks. Paris, London, and other great cities and small are working, intriguing, dying, being born. There in the Rue Taranne, for instance, the once noisy Denis Diderot has fallen silent enough. Here also in Bolt Court old Samuel Johnson, like an overwearied giant, must lie down and slumber without dream. The rattling of carriages and wains, and all the world's din and business rolling by, as ever, from of old. Sieur Bemer, however, has not yet drowned himself in the Seine, only walks haggard, wasted, purposing to do it. News, by the merest accident in the world, reach Sieur Bemer of Madame's new favor with Her Majesty. Men will do much before they drown. Sieur Bemer's necklace is on Madame's table, his guttural nasal rhetoric in her ear. He will abate many a pound and penny of the first just price. He will give cheerfully 1,000 louis d'or as cadeau to the generous scion of royalty that shall persuade Her Majesty. The man's importunities grow quite annoying to our Countess, who, in her glib way, satirically prattles how she has been bored, to Monseigneur among others. Dozing down on cushions, far inwards, with soft ministering Hebes and luxurious appliances, with ranked haydocks and a valetaille innumerable that shut out the prose world and its discord, thus lies Monseigneur in enchanted dream. Can he, even in sleep, forget his tutelary countess and her service? By the delicatest presents he alleviates her distresses most undeserved. Nay, once or twice, gilt autographs from a queen, with whom he is evidently rising to unknown heights in favor, have done Monseigneur the honor to make him Her Majesty's Grand Almoner when the case was pressing. Monseigneur, as we say, has had the honor to disburse charitable cash on Her Majesty's behalf to this or the other distressed, deserving object, say only to the length of a few £1,000 advanced from his own funds. Her Majesty being at the moment so poor, and charity a thing that will not wait. Always Madame, good, foolish, gadding creature, takes charge of delivering the money. Madame can descend from her attics in the Belle Image and feel the smiles of nature and fortune a little. So bounteous has the Queen's Majesty been. To Monseigneur, the power of money over highest female hearts had never been incredible. Presents have many times worked wonders. But then, oh heavens, what present! Scarcely were the cloud compeller himself all coined into new louis d'or, worthy to alight in such a lap. Loans, charitable disbursements, however, as we see, are permissible. These, by defect of payment, may become presents. In the vortex of his Eminence's daydreams, lumbering multiform slowly round, this of importunate Beamer and his necklace from time to time turns up. Is the Queen's Majesty at heart desirous of it, but, again, at the moment too poor? Our tutelary Countess answers vaguely, mysteriously, confesses at last, under oath of secrecy, her own private suspicion that the Queen wants this same necklace of all things, but dare not, for a stingy husband, buy it. She, the Countess de Lamotte, will look farther into the matter, and if aught serviceable to his Eminence can be suggested, in a good way suggest it, in the proper quarter. Walk warily, Countess de Lamotte, for now, with thickening breath, thou approachest the moment of moments. Principalities and powers, Parlement, Grand Chambre, and Tournelle, with all their whips and gibbet wheels, the very crack of doom hangs over thee if thou trip. Forward, with nerve of iron on shoes of felt, like a treasure digger, in silence, looking neither to the right nor left, where yon abyss is deep as the pool, and all pandemonium hovers, eager to rend thee into rags. End of chapter 8. Chapter 9 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. Chapter 9. Park of Versailles. Or will the reader incline rather, taking the other and sunny side of the matter, to enter that Lamottic Circean theatrical establishment on Monseigneur de Rohan, and see there how, under the best of dramaturgists, melodrama with sweeping pall flits past him, while the enchanted diamond fruit is gradually ripening to fall by a shake. The 28th of July of the same momentous 1784 has come, and with it the most rapturous tumult into the heart of Monseigneur. Ineffable expectancy stirs up his whole soul, with the much that lies therein from its lowest foundations, borne on wild seas to Armida islands, yet, as is fit, through horror dim hovering round he tumultuously rocks. To the chateau, to the park! This night the Queen will meet thee, the Queen herself. So far has our tutelary Countess brought it. What can ministerial impediments, Polignac intrigues, avail against the favor, nay, heaven and earth, perhaps the tenderness of a queen? She vanishes from amid their meshwork of etiquette and cabal, descends from her celestial zodiac to thee, a shepherd of Latmos. Alas, a white-bearded Percy shepherd, fat and scant of breath, who can account for the taste of females? But thou, burnish up thy whole faculties of gallantry, thy 50 years' experience of the sex, this night or never. In such unutterable meditations does Monseigneur restlessly spend the day, and long for darkness, yet dread it. Darkness has at length come. The perpendicular rows of haydux in that Palais or Hôtel de Strasbourg are all cast prostrate in sleep. The very concierge resupine, with open mouth audibly drinks in nepenthe, when Monseigneur, in blue greatcoat with slouched hat, issues softly with his henchman Planta of the Grisons to the Park of Versailles. Planta must loiter invisible in the distance. Slouched Hat will wait here, among the leafy thickets, till our tutelary countess, in black domino, announce the moment, which surely must be near. The night is of the darkest for the season. No moon. Warm, slumbering July, in motionless clouds, drops fatness over the earth. The very stars from the zenith see not Monseigneur, see only his and the world's cloud covering, fringed with twilight in the far north. Midnight, telling itself forth from these shadowy palace domes, all the steeples of Versailles, the villages around, with metal tongue, and huge Paris itself, dull droning, answer drowsily, yes. Sleep rules this hemisphere of the world. From Arctic to Antarctic, the life of our earth lies all in long swaths or rows, like those rows of haydocks and snoring concierge, successively mown down, from vertical to horizontal, by sleep. Rather curious to consider. The flowers are all asleep in little Trianon, the roses folded in for the night, but the rose of roses still wakes. O wondrous earth! O doubly wondrous park of Versailles, with little and great Trianon, and a scarce-breathing Monseigneur! Ye hydraulics of Le Notre, that also slumber with stop-cocks in your deep leaden chambers, babble not of him when ye arise. Ye odorous balm shrubs, huge spectral cedars, thou sacred boscage of hornbeam, ye dim pavilions of the peerless, whisper not. Moon, lie silent, hidden in thy vacant cave, no star look down. Let neither heaven nor hell peep through the blanket of the night to cry, hold, hold! The black domino. Ha, yes! With stouter step than might have been expected, Monseigneur is under way. The black domino had only to whisper, low and eager, in the hornbeam arbor. And now, Cardinal, oh, now! Yes, there hovers the white celestial, in white robe of linen moucheté, finer than moonshine. A Juno by her bearing, there in that bosquet. Monseigneur, down on thy knees, never can red breeches be better wasted. Oh, he would kiss the royal shoe-tie, or its shadow if there were one. Not words, only broken gaspings, murmuring prostrations, eloquently speak his meaning. But, ah, behold, our tutelary black domino in haste with vehement whisper, En vient! The white Juno drops a fairest rose with these ever-memorable words, Vous savez ce que cela vous dirait. You know what that means. Vanishes in the thickets, the black domino hurrying her with eager whisper of Vite, vite, away, away, for the sound of footsteps, doubtless from Madame, and Madame d'Artois, unwelcome sisters that they are, is approaching fast. Monseigneur picks up his rose, runs as for the king's plate, almost overturns poor Planta, whose laugh assures him that all is safe. O Ixion de Rohan, happiest mortal of this world since the first Ixion of deathless memory, who nevertheless in that cloud embrace begat strange centaurs. Thou art prime minister of France without peradventure. Is not this the rose of royalty, worthy to become ottar of roses, and yield perfume forever? How thou, of all people, wilt contrive to govern France in these very peculiar times, but that is little to the matter. There doubtless is thy rose, which methinks it were well to have a box or casket made for. Nay, was there not in the dolcet of thy Juno's Vous savez, a kind of trepidation, a quaver, as of still deeper meanings? Reader, there is hitherto no item of this miracle that is not historically proved and true. in distracted black magical phantasmagory, adumbrations of yet higher and highest dalliances hover stupendous in the background, whereof your Georgelles and Campans and other official characters can take no notice. There, in distracted black magical phantasmagory, let these hover. The truth of them for us is that they do so hover. The truth of them in itself is known only to 3 persons: Dame self-styled Countess de Lamotte, the Devil, and Philippe Égalité, who furnished money and facts for the Lamotte memoirs, and, before guillotinement, begat the present King of the French. Enough that Ixion de Rohan lapsed almost into deliquium, by such sober certainty of waking bliss is the happiest of all men, and his tutelary countess the dearest of all women, save one only. On the 25th of August, so strong still are those villainous drawing-room cabals, he goes, weeping but submissive, by order of a gilt autograph, home to Saverne, till farther dignities can be matured for him. He carries his rose, now considerably faded, in a casket of fit price, may, if he so please, perpetuate it as potpourri. He names a favorite walk in his archiepiscopal pleasure grounds, Promenade de la Rose. There let him court digestion, and loyally somnambulate till called for. I notice it as a coincidence in chronology that, few days after this date, the demoiselle, or even, for the last month, Baroness, Gay d'Oliva, began to find Countess Lamotte not at home in her fine Paris hotel, in her fine Charon country house, and went no more, with Villette and such pleasant dinner guests, and her, to see Beaumarchais' Mariage de Figaro running its 100 nights. End of chapter 9. Chapter 10 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. Chapter 10. Behind the Scenes. The Queen? Good reader, thou surely art not a Partridge the schoolmaster, or a Monseigneur de Rohan, to mistake the stage for a reality? But who this Demoiselle d'Oliva was? Reader, let us remark rather how the labors of our dramaturgic countess are increasing. New actors I see on the scene, not one of whom shall guess what the other is doing, or indeed know rightly what himself is doing. For example, cannot Messieurs de Lamotte and Villette of rascaldom, like Nissus and Euryalus, take a midnight walk of contemplation, with footsteps of Madame and Madame Artois, since all footsteps are much the same, without offense to anyone? A queen's similitude can believe that a queen's self, for frolic's sake, is looking at her through the thicket. A terrestrial cardinal can kiss with devotion a celestial queen's slipper, or a queen's similitude's slipper, and none but a black domino the wiser. All these shall follow each his pre-calculated course, for their inward mechanism is known, and fit wires hook themselves on this. To 2 only is a clear belief vouchsafed, to Monseigneur a clear belief founded on stupidity, to the great creative dramaturgist sitting at the heart of the whole mystery, a clear belief founded on completest insight. Great creative dramaturgist! How, like Schiller, by union of the possible with the necessarily existing, she brings out the 80,000 pounds. Don Aranda, with his triple-sealed missives and hoodwinked secretaries, bragged justly that he cut down the Jesuits in one day. But here, without ministerial salary or king's favor or any help beyond her own black domino, labors a greater than he. How she advances stealthily, steadfastly, with Argus eye and ever-ready brain, with nerve of iron on shoes of felt. O worthy to have been intrigued for Jesuitdom, for Pope's tiara, to have been Pope Joan thyself in those old days, and as Arachne of Arachnes sat in the center of that stupendous spider-web, which, reaching from Goa to Acapulco and from heaven to hell, over-netted the thoughts and souls of men, of which spider-web stray tatters in favorable dewy mornings even yet become visible. The Demoiselle d'Oliva? She is a Parisian demoiselle of 23, tall, blonde, and beautiful. From unjust guardians and an evil world, she has had somewhat to suffer. In this month of June, 1784, says the demoiselle herself in her judicial autobiography, I occupied a small apartment in the Rue de Jour, Quartier de Eustache. I was not far from the garden of the Palais Royal. I had made it my usual promenade. For indeed, the real God's truth is, I was a Parisian, unfortunate female with moderate custom, and one must go where his market lies. I frequently passed 3 or 4 hours of the afternoon there, with some women of my acquaintance, and a little child of 4 years old whom I was fond of, whom his parents willingly trusted with me. I even went thither alone, except for him, when other company failed. One afternoon, in the month of July following, I was at the Palais Royal. My whole company at the moment was the child I speak of. A tall young man, walking alone, passes several times before me. He was a man I had never seen. He looks at me. He looks fixedly at me. I observe even that always, as he comes near, he slackens his pace, as if to survey me more at leisure. A chair stood vacant, 2 or 3 feet from mine. He seats himself there. Till this instant, the sight of the young man, his walks, his approaches, his repeated gazings, had made no impression on me. But now when he was sitting so close by, I could not avoid noticing him. His eyes ceased not to wander all over my person. His air becomes earnest, grave. An unquiet curiosity appears to agitate him. He seems to measure my figure, to seize by turns all parts of my physiognomy. He finds me, but whispers not a syllable of it, tolerably like both in person and profile. For even the Abbé Georgel says, I was a belle courtisane. It is time to name this young man. He was the Sieur de Lamotte, styling himself Comte de Lamotte. Who doubts it? He praises my feeble charms, expresses a wish to pay his addresses to me. I, being a lone spinster, know not what to say, think it best in the meanwhile to retire. Vain precaution! I see him all on a sudden appear in my apartment. On his 9th visit, for he was always civility itself, he talks of introducing a great court lady, by whose means I may even do her Majesty some little service, the reward of which will be unspeakable. In the dusk of the evening, silks mysteriously rustle. Enter the creative dramaturgist, dame styled Countess de Lamotte. And so, the too intrusive scientific reader has now, for his punishment, got on the wrong side of that loveliest transparency, finds nothing but grease-pots and vapor of expiring wicks. The Demoiselle Gay d'Oliva may once more sit or stand in the Palais Royal with such custom as will come. In due time she shall again, but with the breath of terror, be blown upon, and blown out of France to Brussels. End of chapter 10. Chapter 11 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. Chapter 11. The Necklace is Sold. Autumn, with its gray moaning winds and coating of red-strewn leaves, invites courtiers to enjoy the charms of nature, and all business of moment stands still. Countess de Lamotte, while everything is so stagnant, and even Bamer has locked up his necklace and his hopes for the season, can drive with her Count and Eureless Villette down to native Bar-sur-Aube, and there, in virtue of a queen's bounty, show the envious a scion of royalty regrafted, and make them yellower looking on it. A well-varnished chariot, with the arms of Valois duly painted in bend sinister, a house gallantly furnished, bodies gallantly attired, secure them the favorablest reception from all manner of men. The very Duc de Penthièvre, Egalité's father-in-law, welcomes our Lamotte with that urbanity characteristic of his high station and the old school. Worth, indeed, makes the man, or woman, but leather of gig straps and prunella of gig lining first makes it go. The great creative dramaturgist has thus let down her drop scene, and only, with a letter or two to Saverne, or even a visit thither, for it is but a day's drive from Bar, keeps up a due modicum of intermediate instrumental music. She needs some pause, in good sooth, to collect herself a little, for the last act and the grand catastrophe is at hand. Two fixed ideas, cardinals and jewelers, a negative and a positive, have felt each other, stimulated now by new hope, are rapidly revolving round each other, and approximating, like two flames, are stretching out long fire tongues to join and be one. Bamer, on his side, is ready with the readiest, as indeed he has been these 4 long years. The Countess, it is true, will have neither part nor lot in that foolish cadeau of his, nor in the whole foolish necklace business. This she has, in plain words, and not even without asperity, due to a bore of such magnitude, given him to know. From her, nevertheless, by cunning inference, and the merest accident in the world, the sly joaillier bijoutier has gleaned thus much, that Monsieur de Rohan is the man. Enough! Enough! Madame shall no more be troubled. Rest there, in hope, thou necklace of the devil. But, O Monseigneur, be thy return speedy. Alas, the man lives not that would be speedier than Monseigneur, if he durst. But as yet no gilt autograph invites him, permits him. The few gilt autographs are all negatory, procrastinating. Cabals of court, forever cabals! Nay, if it be not for some necklace, or other such crotchet or necessity, who knows but he may never be recalled, so fickle is womankind, but forgotten and left to rot here, like his rose, into pot-pourri. Our tutelary countess, too, is shyer in this matter than we ever saw her. Nevertheless, by intense skilful cross-questioning, he has extorted somewhat. Sees partly how it stands. The Queen's Majesty will have her necklace. For when, in such a case, had not woman her way? The Queen's Majesty can even pay for it, by installments. But then the stingy husband. Once and for all, she will not be seen in the business. Now, therefore, were it or were it not permissible to mortal to transact it secretly in her stead? That is the question. If to mortal, then to Monseigneur. Our Countess has even ventured to hint afar off at Monseigneur, kind Countess, in the proper quarter, but his discretion in regard to money matters is doubted. Discretion? And I on the Promenade de la Rose? Explode not, O Eminence. Trust will spring of trial. Thy hour is coming. The Lamottes, meanwhile, have left their farewell card with all the respectable classes of Bar-sur-Aube. Our dramaturgist stands again behind the scenes at Paris. How is it, O Monseigneur, that she is still so shy with thee in this matter of the necklace? That she leaves the lovelorn Latmian shepherd to droop here in lone Saverne, like weeping ash in naked winter on his promenade of the rose, with vague, commonplace responses that his hour is coming? By heaven and earth, at last, in late January, it is come. Behold it, this new gilt autograph. To Paris, on a small business of delicacy, which our Countess will explain. Which I already know. To Paris, horses, postilions, beef-eaters. And so his resuscitated eminence, all wrapped in furs, in the pleasantest frost, Abbé Georgel says, un peu froid de janvier, over clear jingling highways rolls rapidly, borne on the bosom of dreams. O Dame de Lamotte, has the enchanted diamond fruit ripened then? Hast thou given it the little shake, big with unutterable fate? I? Can the dame justly retort. Who saw me in it? The reader, therefore, has still 3 scenic exhibitions to look at by our great dramaturgist, then the 4th and last by another author. To us, reflecting how oftenest the true moving force in human things works hidden underground, it seems small marvel that this month of January 1785, wherein our Countess so little courts the eye of the vulgar historian, should nevertheless have been the busiest of all for her, especially the latter half thereof. Wisely eschewing matters of business, which she could never in her life understand, our Countess will personally take no charge of that bargain-making, leaves it all to Her Majesty and the gilt autographs. Assiduous Baymer, nevertheless, is in frequent close conference with Monseigneur. The Paris Palais de Strasbourg, shut to the rest of men, sees the joaillier bijoutier with eager official aspect come and go. The grand difficulty is, must we say it, Her Majesty's wilful whimsicality, unacquaintance with business. She positively will not write a gilt autograph, authorizing His Eminence to make the bargain, but writes rather in a pettish manner that the thing is of no consequence and can be given up. Thus must the poor Countess dash to and fro like a weaver's shuttle between Paris and Versailles, wear her horse and nerves to pieces, nay, sometimes in the hottest haste, wait many hours within call of the palace, considering what can be done, with none but Villette to bear her company, till the Queen's whim pass. At length, after furious driving, and conferences enough, on the 29th of January, a middle course is hit on. Cautious Baymer shall write out on finest paper his terms, which are really rather fair. 1,600,000 livres, to be paid in 5 equal installments. The first this day 6 months, the other 4 from 3 months to 3 months. This is what court jewelers, Baymer and Bassange, on the one part, and Prince Cardinal Commendator Louis de Rohan on the other part, will stand to. Witness their hands. Which written sheet of finest paper our poor Countess must again take charge of, again dash off with to Versailles, and therefrom, after trouble unspeakable, shared in only by the faithful Villette of rascaldom, return with it, bearing this most precious marginal note, Bonne Marie Antoinette de France, in the autograph hand. Happy Cardinal, this thou shalt keep in the innermost of all thy repositories. Baymer, meanwhile, secret as death, shall tell no man that he has sold his necklace, or, if much pressed for an actual sight of the same, confess that it is sold to the favorite Sultana of the Grand Turk for the time being. Thus, then, do the smoking Lamotte horses at length get rubbed down and feel the taste of oats after midnight. The Lamotte Countess can also gradually sink into needful slumber, perhaps not unbroken by dreams. On the morrow the bargain shall be concluded. Next day the necklace be delivered, on Monseigneur's receipt. Will the reader therefore be pleased to glance at the following 2 life pictures, real phantasmagories, or whatever we may call them. They are the 2 first of those 3 scenic, real poetic exhibitions brought about by our dramaturgist. Short exhibitions, but essential ones. End of chapter 11. Section 12 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 12. The Necklace Vanishes. It is the first day of February, that grand day of delivery. The Sieur Baymer is in the court of the Palais de Strasbourg. His look, mysterious official, and though much emaciated, radiant with enthusiasm. The Seine has missed him. Though lean, he will fatten again, and live through new enterprises. Singular, were we not used to it. The name Baymer, as it passes upwards and inwards, lowers all halberts of haiducs in perpendicular rows. The historical eye beholds him, bowing low, with plenteous smiles, in the plush saloon of audience. Will it please Monseigneur, then, to do the ne plus ultra of necklaces the honor of looking at it? A piece of art which the universe cannot parallel shall be parted with, necessity compels court jewelers, at that ruinously low sum. They, the court jewelers, shall have much ado to weather it, but their work at least will find a fit wearer, and go down into juster posterity. Monseigneur will merely have the condescension to sign this receipt of delivery. All the rest, Her Highness the Sultana of the Sublime Porte has settled it. Here the court jeweler, with his joyous though now much emaciated face, ventures on a faint knowing smile, to which, in the lofty dissolute serene of Monseigneur's, some twinkle of permission could not but respond. This is the first of those 3 real poetic exhibitions brought about by our dramaturgus with perfect success. It was said, long afterwards, that Monseigneur should have known, and even that Baymer should have known, Her Highness the Sultana's marginal note, her right, Marie Antoinette of France, to be a forgery and a mockery. The of France was fatal to it. Easy talking, easy criticizing. But how are 2 enchanted men to know? 2 men with a fixed idea each, a negative and a positive, rushing together to neutralize each other in rapture. Enough, Monseigneur has the ne plus ultra of necklaces, conquered by man's valor and woman's wit, and rolls off with it in mysterious speed to Versailles, triumphant as a Jason with his golden fleece. The second grand scenic exhibition by our dramaturgic countess occurs in her own apartment at Versailles so early as the following night. It is a commodious apartment with alcove, and the alcove has a glass door. Monseigneur enters, with a follower bearing a mysterious casket, who carefully deposits it, and then respectfully withdraws. It is the necklace itself in all its glory. Our tutelary countess and Monseigneur, and we, can at leisure admire the queenly talisman, congratulate ourselves that the painful conquest of it is achieved. But hist! A knock, mild but decisive, as from one knocking with authority. Monseigneur and we retire to our alcove. There, from behind our glass screen, observe what passes. Who comes? The door flung open. De par la reine! Behold him, Monseigneur. He enters with grave, respectful, yet official air. Worthy Monseigneur Queen's valet Leclos, the same who escorted our tutelary countess that moonlit night from the back apartments of Versailles. Said we not thou wouldst see him once more? Methinks again, in spite of his queen's uniform, he has much the features of valet of rascaldom. Rascaldom or valetdom, for to the blind all colors are the same. He has, with his grave, respectful, yet official air, received the casket and its priceless contents, with fit injunction, with fit engagements, and retires bowing low. Thus softly, silently, like a very dream, flits away our solid necklace through the horn gate of dreams. End of chapter 12. Section 13 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 13. Scene 3rd by Dame de Lamotte. Now, too, in these same days, as he can afterwards prove by affidavit of landlords, arrives Count Cagliostro himself from Lyons. no longer by predictions in cipher, but by his living voice, often in rapt communion with the unseen world, with carafe and 4 candles, by his greasy, prophetic bulldog face, said to be the most perfect quack face of the 18th century, can we assure ourselves that all is well, that all will turn to the glory of Monseigneur, to the good of France and of mankind, and of Egyptian masonry? Tokay flows like water. Our charming countess, with her piquancy of face, is sprightlier than ever, enlivens with the brightest sallies, with the adroitest flatteries to all those suppers of the gods. O nights, O suppers, too good to last! Nay, now also occurs another and a third scenic exhibition, fitted by its radiance to dispel from Monsignor's soul the last trace of care. Why, the Queen does not, even yet, openly receive me at court? Patience, Monseigneur. Thou little knowest those 2 intricate cabals, how she still but works at them silently, with royal suppressed fury, like a royal lioness, only delivering herself from the hunter's toils. Meanwhile, is not thy work done? The necklace, she rejoices over it, beholds, many times in secret, her Juno neck mirrored back the lovelier for it, as our tutelar countess can testify. Come tomorrow to the Oeil de Boeuf. There see with eyes in high noon, as already in deep midnight thou hast seen, whether in her royal heart there were delay. Let us stand, then, with Monseigneur in that Oeil de Boeuf in the Versailles Palace Gallery, for all well-dressed persons are admitted. There the loveliest, in pomp of royalty, will walk to mass. The world is all in pelisses and winter furs, cheerful, clear, with noses tending to blue. A lively, many-voiced hum plays fitful hither and thither, of sledge parties and court parties, frosty state of the weather, stability of Monsieur de Cologne, Majesty's looks yesterday. Such a hum as always in these sacred court spaces, since Louis le Grand made and consecrated them, has, with more or less impetuosity, agitated our common atmosphere. Ah, through that long, high gallery what figures have passed and vanished! Louvois, with the great king, flashing fire glances on the fugitive, in his red right hand a pair of tongs, which pious Maintenon hardly holds back. Louvois, where art thou? Ye Maréchaux de France, ye unmentionable women of past generations? Here also was it that rolled and rushed the sound absolutely like thunder of courtier hosts, in that dark hour when the signal light in Louis XV's chamber window was blown out, and his ghastly, infectious corpse lay lone, forsaken on its tumbled death lair, in the hands of some poor women. And the courtier hosts rushed from the deep fallen to hail the new risen. These too rushed and passed, and their sound, absolutely like thunder, became silence. Figures? Men? They are fast fleeting shadows, fast chasing each other. It is not a palace, but a caravanserai. Monseigneur, with thy too much Tokay overnight, cease puzzling. Here thou art, this blessed February day. The peerless, will she turn lightly that high head of hers and glance aside into the Oeil de Boeuf in passing? Please heaven, she will. To our tutelary countess, at least, she promised it. Though, alas, so fickle is womankind. Hark! Clang of opening doors! She issues, like the moon in silver brightness, down the eastern steeps. La reine vient! What a figure! I, with the aid of glasses, discern her. O fairest, peerless! Let the hum of minor discoursing hush itself wholly, and only one successive rolling peal of Vive la Reine, like the movable radiance of a train of fireworks, irradiate her path. Ye immortals! She does, she beckons, turns her head this way. Does she not? Says Countess Lamotte. Versailles, the Oeil de Boeuf, and all men and things are drowned in a sea of light. Monsignor and that high beckoning head are alone, with each other in the universe. Oh, Eminence, what a beatific vision! Enjoy it, blessed as the gods. Ruminate and re-enjoy it with full soul. It is the last provided for thee. Too soon, in the course of these 6 months, shall thy beatific vision, like Mirza's vision, gradually melt away, and only oxen and sheep be grazing in its place. And thou, as a doomed Nebuchadnezzar, be grazing with them. "Does she not?" said the Countess Lamotte. "That is a habit of hers. That hardly a day passes without her doing it." This the Countess de Lamotte did not say. End of chapter 13. Section 14 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 14. The Necklace Cannot Be Paid. Here, then, the specially dramaturgic labors of Countess de Lamotte may be said to terminate. The rest of her life is histrionic merely, or histrionic and critical, as indeed what had all the former part of it been but a hypocrisia, a more or less correct playing of parts. "Oh, Mrs. Facing both ways," as old Bunyan said, "what a talent hadst thou! No Proteus ever took so many shapes, no chameleon so often changed color. One thing thou wert to Monsignor, another thing to Cagliostro, and Villette of rascaldom, a third thing to the world, in printed memoirs, a fourth thing to Philip Egalite, all things to all men." Let her, however, we say, but manage now to act her own parts, with proper histrionic illusion, and, by critical glosses, give her past dramaturgy the fit aspect to Monsignor and others. This henceforth, and not new dramaturgy, includes her whole task. Dramatic scenes, in plenty, will follow of themselves, especially that fourth and final scene, spoken of above as by another author, by destiny itself. For in the Lamotte Theatre, so different from our common pasteboard one, the play goes on, even when the machinist has left it. Strange enough, those air images, which from her magic lantern she hung out on the empty bosom of night, have clutched hold of this solid-seeming world, which some call the material world, as if that made it a more real one, and will tumble hither and thither the solidest masses there. Yes, reader, so goes it here below. What thou callest a brain-web, or mere elusive nothing, is it not a web of the brain, of the spirit which inhabits the brain, and which, in this world, rather as I think to be named the spiritual one, very naturally moves and tumbles hither and thither all things it meets with in heaven or in earth? So too the necklace, though we saw it vanish through the horn gate of dreams, and, in my opinion, man shall never more behold it, yet its activity ceases not, nor will. For no act of man, no thing, how much less the man himself, is extinguished when it disappears. Through considerable times it still visibly works, though done and vanished. I have known a done thing work visibly 3,000 years and more. Invisibly, unrecognized, all done things work through endless times and years. Such a hyper-magical is this our poor old real world, which some take upon them to pronounce effete, prosaic. Friend, it is thyself that art all withered up into effete prose, dead as ashes. Know this, I advise thee, and seek passionately, with a passion little short of desperation, to have it remedied. Meanwhile, what will the feeling heart think to learn that Monsignor de Rohan, as we prophesied, again experiences the fickleness of a court, that, notwithstanding the beatific visions at noon and midnight, the Queen's Majesty, with the light ingratitude of her sex, flies off at a tangent, and, far from ousting his detested and detesting rival, Minister Breteuil, and openly delighting to honor Monsignor, will hardly vouchsafe him a few gilt autographs, and those few of the most capricious, suspicious, soul-confusing tenor? What terrifico absurd explosions, which scarcely Cagliostro, with carafe and 4 candles, can still? How many deep-weighed, humble petitions, explanations, expostulations, penned with fervidest eloquence, with craftiest diplomacy, all delivered by our tutelar countess, in vain! O Cardinal, with what a huge iron mace, like Guy of Warwick's, thou smitest phantasms in 2, which close again, take shape again, and only thrashest the air. One comfort, however, is that the Queen's Majesty has committed herself. The Rose of Trianon, and what may pertain thereto, lies it not here? That right, Marie Antoinette of France, too, and the 30th of July, first installment day coming, she shall be brought to terms, good eminence. Order horses and beef-eaters for Saverne. There, ceasing all written or oral communication, starve her into capitulating. It is the bright May month. His Eminence again somnambulates in the Promenade de la Rose, but now with grim, dry eyes, and from time to time terrifically stamping. But who is this that I see mounted on costliest horse and horse gear, betting at Newmarket races, though he can speak no English word, and only some Chevalier O'Neill, some Capuchin Macdermot from Bar-sur-Aube interprets his French into the dialect of the sister island? Few days ago I observed him walking in Fleet Street, thoughtfully through Temple Bar, in deep treaty with jeweller Jeffreys, with jeweller Gray, for the sale of diamonds, such a lot as one may boast of. A tall, handsome man, with ex-military whiskers, with a look of troubled gaiety and rascalism. You think it is the Sieur self-styled Count de Lamotte? Nay, the man himself confesses it. The diamonds were a present to his countess, from the still bountiful queen. Villette, too, has he completed his sales at Amsterdam? Him I shall by and by behold, not betting at Newmarket, but drinking wine and ardent spirits in the taverns of Geneva. Ill-gotten wealth endures not. Rascaldom has no strong box. Countess de Lamotte, for what a set of cormorant scoundrels hast thou labored, art thou still laboring? Still laboring, we may say, for as the fatal 30th of July approaches, what is to be looked for but universal earthquake, mud explosion that will blot out the face of nature? Methinks, stood I in thy patterns, Dame de Lamotte, I would cut and run. Run! Exclaimed she with a toss of indignant astonishment. Calumniated innocence, run! For it is singular how in some minds, which are mere bottomless, chaotic whirlpools of gilt shreds, there is no deliberate lying whatever, and nothing is either believed or disbelieved, but only, with some transient suitable histrionic emotion, spoken and heard. Had Dame de Lamotte a certain greatness of character, then, at least a strength of transcendent audacity, amounting to the bastard heroic? Great, indubitably great, is her dramaturgic and histrionic talent. But as for the rest, one must answer with reluctance, no. Mrs. Facing Both Ways is a spark of vehement life, but the farthest in the world from a brave woman. She did not, in any case, show the bravery of a woman, did, in many cases, show the mere screaming trepidation of one. Her grand quality is rather to be reckoned negative, the untamableness as of a fly, the wax-cloth dress from which so much ran down like water. Small sparrows, as I learn, have been trained to fire cannon, but would make poor artillery officers in a Waterloo. Thou dost not call that cork a strong swimmer, which nevertheless shoots without hurt the falls of Niagara, defies the thunderbolt itself to sink it for more than a moment. Without intellect, imagination, power of attention, or any spiritual faculty, how brave were one, with fit motive for it, such as hunger! How much might one dare, by the simplest of methods, by not thinking of it, not knowing it? Besides, is not Cagliostro, foolish blustering quack, still here? No scapegoat had ever broader back. The Cardinal, too, has he not money? Queen's Majesty, even in effigy, shall not be insulted. The Soubisses, des Mensonges, and high and puissant cousins must huddle the matter up. Calumniated innocence, in the most universal of earthquakes, will find some crevice to whisk through, as she has so often done. But all this while, how fares it with his Eminence, left somnambulating the Promenade de la Rose, and at times truculently stamping? Alas, ill, and ever worse. The starving method, singular as it may seem, brings no capitulation. Brings only, after a month's waiting, our tutelary countess with a gilt autograph indeed, and all wrapped in silk threads, sealed where they cross, but which we read with curses. We must back again to Paris. There pen new expostulations, which our unwearied countess will take charge of, but, alas, can get no answer to. However, is not the 30th of July coming? Behold, on the 19th of that month, the shortest, most careless of autographs, some £1,500 of real money in it, to pay the interest of the first installment, the principal of some 30,000 not being at the moment perfectly convenient. Hungry Bamer makes large eyes at this proposal, will accept the money, but only as part of the payment. The man is positive. A court of justice, if no other means, shall get him the remainder. What now is to be done? Farmer General Monsignor St. James, Cagliostro's disciple, and wet with Tokay, will cheerfully advance the sum needed, for Her Majesty's sake. Thinks, however, with all his Tokay, it were good to speak with Her Majesty first. I observe, meanwhile, the distracted hungry Bamer driven hither and thither, not by his fixed idea, alas, no, but by the far more frightful ghost thereof, since no payment is forthcoming. He stands one day speaking with the Queen's waiting woman, Madame Campan herself, in a thunder shower which neither of them notice, so thunderstruck are they. What weather symptoms for his Eminence! The 30th of July has come, but no money. The 30th is gone, but no money. Oh, Eminence, what a grim farewell of July is this of 1785! The last July went out with airs from heaven and Trianon roses. These August days, are they not worse than dogs' days, worthy to be blotted out from all almanacs? Bamer and Bassange thou canst still see, but only return them from swearing. Nay, what new misery is this? Our tutelary histrionic countess enters, distraction in her eyes. She has just been at Versailles. The Queen's Majesty, with a levity of caprice which we dare not trust ourselves to characterize, declares plainly that she will deny ever having got the necklace, ever having had with His Eminence any transaction whatsoever. O mud explosion without parallel in volcanic annals! The Palais de Strasbourg appears to be beset with spies. The Lamottes, for the Count too is here, are packing up for Bar-sur-Aube. The Sieur Bamer, has he fallen insane, or into communication with Minister Breteuil? And so, distractedly and distractively, to the sound of all discords in nature, opens that fourth, final scenic exhibition, composed by destiny. End of chapter 14. Section 15 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 15, Scene 4th, by Destiny. It is Assumption Day, the 15th of August. Don thy pontificalia, Grand Almoner. Crush down these hideous temporalities out of sight. In any case, smooth thy countenance into some sort of lofty, dissolute, serene. Thou hast a thing they call worshipping God to enact, thyself the first actor. The Grand Almoner has done it. He is in Versailles, Oeil de Boeuf Gallery, where male and female peerage, and all noble France in gala various and glorious as the rainbow, waits only the signal to begin worshipping. On the serene of his lofty, dissolute countenance, there can nothing be read. By heaven, he is sent for to the royal apartment. He returns with the old, lofty, dissolute look, inscrutably serene. Has his turn for favor actually come, then? Those 15 long years of soul's travail are to be rewarded by a birth? Monsieur le Baron de Breteuil issues, great in his pride of place, in this the crowning moment of his life. With one radiant glance, Breteuil summons the officer on guard. With another, fixes Monseigneur. De par les rats, Monseigneur. You are arrested. At your risk, officer. Curtains of pitch-black whirlwind envelop Monseigneur, whirl off with him to outer darkness. Versailles Gallery explodes aghast, as if Guy Fawkes's plot had burst under it. The Queen's Majesty was weeping, whisper some. There will be no Assumption service, or such a one as was never celebrated since Assumption came in fashion. Europe, then, shall ring with it from side to side. But why rides that Haiduk as if all the devils drove him? It is Monseigneur's Haiduk. Monseigneur spoke 3 words in German to him at the door of his Versailles hotel, even handed him a slip of writing which, with borrowed pencil, in his red square cap, he had managed to prepare on the way thither. To Paris! To the Palais Cardinal! The horse dies on reaching the stable. The Haiduk swoons on his reaching the cabinet, but his slip of writing fell from his hand, and I, says the Abbé Georgel, was there. The red portfolio, containing all the gilt autographs, is burnt utterly, with much else, before Breteuil can arrive for apposition of the seals, whereby Europe, in ringing from side to side, must worry itself with guessing, and at this hour, on this paper, sees the matter in such an interesting clear-obscure. Soon Count Cagliostro and his seraphic countess go to join Monseigneur in state prison. In few days follows Dame de Lamotte from Bar-sur-Aube, Demoiselle d'Olivia by and by from Brussels, Villette de Retto from his Swiss retirement in the taverns of Geneva. The Bastille opens its iron bosom to them all. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16 of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter last. Missa Est. Thus, then, the diamond necklace having, on the one hand, vanished through the horn gate of dreams, and so, under the pincers of Nisus Lamotte and Euryalus Villette, lost its sublunary individuality and being, and, on the other hand, all that trafficked in it, sitting now safe under lock and key, that justice may take cognizance of them. Our engagement in regard to the matter is on the point of terminating. That extraordinary procès du collier, necklace trial, spinning itself through 9 other ever memorable months, to the astonishment of the 187 assembled parlementiers, and of all quidnuncs, journalists, anecdotists, satirists in both hemispheres, is, in every sense, a celebrated trial, and belongs to publishers of such. How, by innumerable confrontations and expiscatory questions, through entanglements, doublings, and windings that fatigue eye and soul, this most involute of lies is finally winded off to the scandalous, ridiculous, cinder heart of it, let others relate. Meanwhile, during these 9 ever-memorable months, till they terminate late at night precisely with the May of 1786, how many fugitive leaves, quizzical, imaginative, or at least mendacious, were flying about in newspapers, or stitched together as pamphlets, and what heaps of others were left creeping in manuscript, we shall not say, having, indeed, no complete collection of them, and what is more to the purpose, little to do with such a collection. Nevertheless, searching for some fit capital of the composite order to adorn adequately the now finished singular pillar of our narrative, what can suit us better than the following, so far as we know, yet unedited? Occasional Discourse by Count Alessandro Cagliostro, thaumaturgist, prophet, and arch-quack, delivered in the Bastille, year of Lucifer, 5789, of the Mahometan Hegira from Mecca, 1201, of the Cagliostric Hegira from Palermo, 24, of the Vulgar Era, 1785. Fellow scoundrels, an unspeakable intrigue spun from the soul of that Circe Megara by our voluntary or involuntary help has assembled us all, if not under one roof-tree, yet within one grim iron-bound ring wall. For an appointed number of months, in the ever-rolling flow of time, we, being gathered from the 4 winds, did by destiny work together in body corporate, and joint laborers in a transaction already famed over the globe, obtain unity of name, like the Argonauts of old, as conquerors of the diamond necklace. Ere long it is done, for ring walls hold not captive the free scoundrel forever, and we disperse again over wide terrestrial space, some of us, it may be, over the very marches of space. Our act hangs indissoluble together, floats wondrous in the older and older memory of men, while we, the little band of scoundrels, who saw each other, now hover so far asunder to see each other no more, if not once more only on the universal doomsday, the last of days. In such interesting moments, while we stand within the verge of parting, and have not yet parted, methinks it well here in these sequestered spaces to institute a few general reflections. Me, as a public speaker, the spirit of masonry, of philosophy, and philanthropy, and even of prophecy, blowing mysterious from the land of dreams, impels to do it. Give ear, O fellow scoundrels, to what the Spirit utters. Treasure it in your hearts. Practice it in your lives. Sitting here, penned up in this which, with a slight metaphor, I call the central cloaca of nature, where a tyrannical Delaunay can forbid the bodily eye free vision, you with the mental eye see but the better. This central cloaca, is it not rather a heart, into which, from all regions, mysterious conduits introduce and forcibly inject whatsoever is choicest in the scoundrelism of the earth, there to be absorbed, or again, by the other oracle, ejected into new circulation? Let the eye of the mind run along this immeasurable Venus arterial system, and astound itself with the magnificent extent of scoundreldom, the deep, I may say, unfathomable significance of scoundrelism. Yes, brethren, wide as the sun's range is our empire, wider than old Rome's in its palmiest era. I have in my time been far, in frozen Muscovy, in hot Calabria, east, west, wheresoever the sky overarches civilized man, and never hitherto saw I myself an alien. Out of scoundreldom I never was. Is it not even said, from of old, by the opposite party, all men are liars? Do they not, and this nowise in haste, whimperingly talk of one just person, as they call him, and of the remaining 1,000 save one that take part with us? So decided is our majority. Applause. Of the Scarlet Woman, Yes, monsieur, without offence, of the scarlet woman that sits on the 7 hills, and her black Jesuit militia, out foraging from pole to pole, I speak not, for the story is too trite. Nay, the militia itself, as I see, begins to be disbanded and invalided for a second treachery to herself, nor yet of governments, for a like reason. Ambassadors, said an English punster, lie abroad for their masters. Their masters, we answer, lie at home for themselves. Not of all this, nor of courtship with its lovers, vows, nor courtiership, nor attorneyism, nor public oratory and selling by auction do I speak. I simply ask the gainsayer, which is the particular trade, profession, mystery, calling, or pursuit of the sons of Adam that they successfully manage in the other way? He cannot answer. No. Philosophy itself, both practical and even speculative, has at length, after shamefullest groping, stumbled on the plain conclusion that sham is indispensable to reality, as lying to living, that without lying the whole business of the world, from swaying of senates to selling of tapes, must explode into anarchic discords, and so a speedy conclusion ensue. But the grand problem, fellow scoundrels, as you well know, is the marrying of truth and sham, so that they become one flesh, man and wife, and generate these 3, profit, pudding, and respectability that always keeps her gig. Wondrously indeed do truth and delusion play into one another. Reality rests on dream. Truth is but the skin of the bottomless untrue, and ever from time to time the untrue sheds it, is clear again, and the superannuated true itself becomes a fable. Thus do all hostile things crumble back into our empire, and of its increase there is no end. O brothers, to think of the speech without meaning, which is mostly ours, and of the speech with contrary meaning, which is wholly ours, manufactured by the organs of mankind in one solar day. Or call it a day of jubilee, when public dinners are given and dinner orations are delivered, or say, a neighboring island in time of general election. O ye immortal gods, the mind is lost, can only admire great nature's plenteousness with a kind of sacred wonder. For tell me, what is the chief end of man? To glorify God, said the old Christian sect, now happily extinct. To eat and find eatables by the readiest method, answers sound philosophy, discarding whims. If the method readier than this of persuasive attraction is yet discovered, point it out. Brethren, I said the old Christian sect was happily extinct, as indeed in Rome itself there goes the wonderfulest traditionary prophecy of that Nazareth Christ coming back and being crucified a second time there, which truly I see not in the least how he could fail to be. Nevertheless, that old Christian whim of an actual living and ruling God, and some sacred covenant binding all men in him, with much other mystic stuff, does, under new or old shape, linger with a few. From these few keep yourselves forever far. They must even be left to their whim, which is not like to prove infectious. But neither are we, my fellow scoundrels, without our religion, our worship, which, like the oldest and all true worship, is one of fear. The Christians have their cross, the Moslem their crescent, but have we not too our gallows? Yes, infinitely terrible is the gallows. It bestrides with its patibulary fork the pit of the bottomless terror. No Manichaeans are we. Our God is one. Great, exceeding great, I say, is the gallows. Of old, even from the beginning, in this world, knowing neither variableness nor decadence. Forever, over the wreck of ages and all civic and ecclesiastic convulsions, meal mobs, revolutions, The gallows with front serenely terrible towers aloft. Fellow scoundrels, fear the gallows and have no other fear. This is the law and the prophets. Fear every emanation of the gallows. And what is every buffet with the fist, or even with the tongue, of one having authority, but some such emanation? And what is force of public opinion, but the infinitude of such emanations, rushing combined on you like a mighty storm-wind? Fear the gallows, I say. Oh, when, with its long black arm, it has clutched a man, what avail him all terrestrial things? These pass away, with horrid nameless dinning in his ears, and the ill-starred scoundrel pendulates between heaven and earth, a thing rejected of both. Profound sensation. Such, so wide in compass, high, gallows high in dignity, is the scoundrel empire, and for depth it is deeper than the foundations of the world. For what was creation itself wholly, according to the best philosophers, but a divulsion by the time-spirit, or devil so called, a forceful interruption, or breaking asunder of the old quiescence of eternity? It was Lucifer that fell, and made this lordly world arise. Deep? It is bottomless deep. The very thought, diving, bobs up from it baffled. Is it not this they call vice of lying, the Adam Kadmon, or primeval rude element, old as chaos mother's womb of death and hell, whereon their thin film of virtue, truth, and the like, poorly wavers for a day? All virtue, what is it, even by their own showing, but vice transformed, that is, manufactured, rendered artificial? Man's vices are the roots from which his virtues grow out and see the light, says one. Well, yes, add I, and thanklessly steal their nourishment. Were it not for the 999 unacknowledged, perhaps martyred and calumniated scoundrels, how were their single just person, with a murrain on him, so much as possible? Oh, it is high, high. These things are too great for me. Intellect, imagination, flags her tired wings, the soul lost, baffled. Here Dame de Lamotte tittered audibly, and muttered coq dinde, which, being interpreted into the Scottish tongue, signifies bubbly jock. The arch-quack, whose eyes were turned inwards as in rapt contemplation, started at the titter and mutter. His eyes flashed outwards with dilated pupil, his nostrils opened wide, his very hair seemed to stir in its long twisted pigtails, his fashion of curl. And as indignation is said to make poetry, it here made prophecy, or what sounded as such. With terrible working features and gesticulation not recommended in any book of gesture, the arch-quack, in voice supernally discordant, like lions worrying bulls of Bashan, began. Oh, sniff not, Dame de Lamotte. Tremble, thou foul Circe Megara. Thy day of desolation is at hand. Behold ye the Sanhedrim of judges, with their fanners of written parchment loud rustling as they winnow all her chaff and down plumage, and she stands there, naked and mean. Villette, Oliva, do ye blab secrets? Ye have no pity of her extreme need, and she none of yours. Is thy light giggling, untamable heart at last heavy? Hark ye, shrieks of one cast out, whom they brand on both shoulders with iron stamp. The red-hot V, thou Volus, hath it entered thy soul? Weep, Circe de Lamotte, wail there in truckled bed, and hysterically gnash thy teeth. Nay, do, smother thyself in thy doormat coverlid. Thou hast found thy mates. Thou art in the saltpetriere. Weep, daughter of the high and puissant sans expressibles. Buzz of Parisian gossipry is about thee, but not to help thee. No, to eat before thy time. What shall a king's court do with thee, thou unclean thing, while thou yet livest? Escape! Flee to utmost countries!
Hide there, if thou canst, thy mark of Cain. In the Babylon of Fogland. Ha! Is that my London? See I, Judas Iscariot, Egalite? Print, yea, print abundantly the abominations of your two hearts. Breath of rattlesnakes can bedim the steel mirror, but only for a time. And there, aye, there at last, tumblest thou from the lofty leads, poverty-stricken, O thriftless daughter of the high and puissant, escaping bailiffs? Descendest thou precipitate in dead night from window in the 3rd story, hurled forth by bacchanals to whom thy shrill tongue had grown unbearable? Yea, through the smoke of that new Babylon thou fallest headlong. One long scream of screams makes night hideous. Thou liest there, shattered like addle egg, nigh to the temple of Flora. O Lamotte, has thy hypocrisia ended then? Thy many characters were all acted. Here at last thou actest not, but art what thou seemest, a mangled squelch of gore, confusion, and abomination, which men huddle underground with no burial stone. Thou gallows carrion.
Here the prophet turned up his nose, the broadest of the 18th century, and opened wide his nostrils with such a greatness of disgust that all the audience, even Lamotte herself, sympathetically imitated him.
O Dame de Lamotte, Dame de Lamotte, now when the circle of thy existence lies complete, and my eye glances over these 23 years that were lent thee, to do evil as thou couldst, and I behold thee a bright-eyed little tatterdemalion, begging and gathering sticks in the Bois du Boulogne, and also at length a squelched putrefaction, here on London pavements, with the head-dressings and hungerings, the gaddings and hysterical gigglings that came between, what shall I say was the meaning of thee at all? Villette de Rateau, have the catchpolls trepanned thee by sham of battle in thy tavern from the sacred republican soil? It is thou that wert the hired forger of handwritings. Thou wilt confess it. Depart, unwhipped yet accursed. Ha! The dread symbol of our faith swings aloft on the castle of St. Angelo, a pendulous mass, which I think I discern to be the body of Villette. There let him end, the sweet morsel of our juggernaut. Nay, weep not thou, disconsolate Oliver. Blear not thy bright blue eyes, daughter of the shady garden. Thee shall the Sanhedrim not harm. This cloaca of nature emits thee. As notablest of unfortunate females, thou shalt have choice of husbands not without capital, and accept one. Know this, for the vision of it is true. But the anointed majesty whom ye profaned? Blow, spirit of Egyptian masonry, blow aside the thick curtains of space. Lo you, her eyes are red with their first tears of pure bitterness, not with their last. Tirewoman Campan is choosing, from the print shops of the quay, the reputed best among the 100 likenesses of Circe de Lamotte. A queen shall consider if the basest of women ever, by any accident, darkened daylight or candlelight for the highest. The portrait answers, never.
Sensation in the audience.
Ha! What is this? Angels, Uriel, Anakiel, and ye other 5, pentagon of rejuvenescence, power that destroyedst original sin, earth, heaven, and thou outer limbo which men name hell. Does the empire of imposture waver? Burst there in starry sheen, updarting light rays from out its dark foundations, as it rocks and heaves, not in travail throes, but in death throes? Yea, light rays, piercing clear, that salute the heavens. Lo, they kindle it. Their starry clearness becomes as red hellfire. Imposture is in flames. Imposture is burnt up. One red sea of fire, wild billowing, enwraps the world. With its fire tongue licks at the very stars. Thrones are hurled into it, and Dubois mitres, and prebendal stalls that drop fatness, and... Ha! What see I? all the gigs of creation, all. Woe is me! Never since Pharaoh's chariots in the Red Sea of water was there wreck of wheeled vehicles like this in the sea of fire. Desolate as ashes, as gases, shall they wander in the wind. Higher yet flames the fire sea, crackling with new dislocated timber, hissing with leather and prunella. The metal images are molten, the marble images become mortar lime, the stone mountains sulkily explode. Respectability, with all her collected gigs inflamed for funeral pyre, wailing, leaves the earth, not to return save under new avatar. Imposture, how it burns through generations, how it is burnt up for a time. The world is black ashes, which, when will they grow green? The images all run into amorphous Corinthian brass, all dwellings of men destroyed, the very mountains peeled and riven, the valleys black and dead. It is an empty world. Woe to them that shall be born then. A king, a queen, me, were hurled in. Did rustle once, flew aloft, crackling like paper scroll. Oliva's husband was hurled in, Iscariot Egalite, thou grim Delaunay with thy grim Bastille. Whole kindreds and peoples, 5 millions of mutually destroying men. For it is the end of the dominion of imposture, which is darkness and opaque fire damp, and the burning up with unquenchable fire of all the gigs that are in the earth. Here the prophet paused, fetching a deep sigh, and the cardinal uttered a kind of faint, tremulous hem. Mourn not, O Monsignor, spite of thy nephritic colic and many infirmities. For thee mercifully it was not unto death. O Monsignor, for thou hadst a touch of goodness. Who would not weep over thee if he also laughed? Behold, the not too judicious historian that long years hence, amid remotest wildernesses, writes thy life, and names thee mud volcano, even he shall reflect that it was thy life, this same, thy only chance through whole eternity, which thou, poor gambler, hast expended so, and even over his hard heart a breath of dewy pity for thee shall blow. O Monsignor, thou wert not all ignoble. Thy mud volcano was but strength dislocated, fire misapplied. Thou wentest ravening through the world. No life elixir or stone of the wise could we two, for want of funds, discover. A foulest Circe undertook to fatten thee, and thou hadst to fill thy belly with the east wind. And burst? By the masonry of Enoch, no. Behold, has not thy Jesuit familiar his scouts dim flying over the deep of human things? Cleared art thou of crime, save that of fixed idea. Weepest, a repentant exile in the mountains of Auvergne. Neither shall the red fire sea itself consume thee, only consume thy gig, and, instead of gig, O rich exchange, restore thyself. Safe beyond the Rhine stream, thou livest peaceful days, savest many from the fire, and anointest their smarting burns. Sleep finally in thy mother's bosom, in a good old age. The cardinal gave a sort of guttural murmur or gurgle, which ended in a long sigh. "O horrors, as ye shall be called!" again burst forth the quack. "Why have ye missed the Sieur de Lamotte? Why not of him, too, made gallows carrion? Will spear or sword stick thrust at him, or supposed to be thrust, through window of hackney coach, in Piccadilly of the Babylon of fog, where he jolts disconsolate, not let out the imprisoned animal existence? Is he poisoned, too? Poison will not kill the Sieur Lamotte, nor steel, nor massacres. Let him drag his utterly superfluous life to a second and a third generation, and admit the not too judicious historian to see his face before he die. But ha!" cried he, and stood wide staring, horror-struck, as if some crib's fist had knocked the wind out of him. "Oh, horror of horrors! Is it not myself I see? Roman Inquisition, long months of cruel baiting, life of Giuseppe Balsamo, Cagliostro's body still lying in St. Leo Castle, his self fled. Whither? Bystanders wag their heads and say, 'The brow of brass, behold how it has got all unlacquered. These pinchbeck lips can lie no more. Hoo!' And he burst into an unstanchable blubbering of tears, and sobbing out the mournfulest broken howl, sank down in swoon, to be put to bed by Delaunay and others. Thus spoke, or thus might have spoken, and prophesied, the arch-quack Cagliostro, and truly much better than he ever else did, for not a jot or tittle of it, save only that of our promised interview with Nestor de Lamotte, which looks unlikelier than ever, for we have not heard of him, dead or living, since 1826, but has turned out to be literally true, as indeed in all this history one jot or tittle of untruth that we could render true is perhaps not discoverable, much as the distrustful reader may have disbelieved. Here, then, our little labor ends. The necklace was and is no more. The stones of it again circulate in commerce, some of them perhaps in rundles at this hour, and may give rise to what other histories we know not. The conquerors of it, every one that trafficked in it, have they not all had their due, which was death? This little business, like a little cloud, bodied itself forth in skies clear to the unobservant, but with such hues of deep-tinted villainy, dissoluteness, and general delirium as, to the observant, betokened it electric. And wise men, a Goethe, for example, boded earthquakes. Has not the earthquake come? The end. End of The Diamond Necklace by Thomas Carlyle.